Well, there goes, wait for it,
What happened?
the neighborhood. Good morning, everybody, and welcome on this Saturday morning, April 25th, 2020, to the 743rd episode of the Days Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream. Conmigo, with me, Dave Lefkowitz, my darling and adorable wife, Joyce, Potato, and all the folks who will be joining us to watch us and listen to the program, as well as, and notice I'm wearing my musical headphone shirt, because later in the show, we're going to have a musical guest, someone who's kind of a mini legend of the indie music scene. They also call it anti-folk. And he's going to be interviewed by one of the most, someone who hates folks more than most, Rabbi Sol Solomon. We'll be talking to Jeffrey Lewis later on this program. Plus, we have all our other usual unusuals to get through. So why don't, first of all, we get through our basic, normal, abnormal intro on Dave's Gone By.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. There goes the neighborhood. And there was much rejoicing.
Didn't your meds kick in yet?
You got David Lefkowitz here. He's a Long Island arts guy. He's got his own radio show.
I want you all to really enjoy a wonderful program done by a fine artist.
A glorious thing of unparalleled beauty.
Dave's Gone By. Dave is one of my very favorite broadcasters, so keep on listening to Mr. Dave.
Well, here we are in the neighborhood as I pop down Captain Beefheart even quicker than I normally do, trying not to anger the Facebook copyright gods. But ladies and gentlemen, we are here and we've got a brand new Dave's Gone By for you. And I'm really, really looking forward to this one. Yes, it's still COVID times. Yes, I'm still sequestered. My wife is still sequestered. All our potato friends are sequestered. I hope you've been well. Hope you've been doing okay. It's been another strange week in the day. But did any of you feel like me earlier in this week when you thought, you know, I should buy a big ass drum of oil? Did you think about this? Because that was that day. It was Tuesday or Wednesday when the price of oil went so low. How low was it?
David, now on Facebook,
Yeah.
they have the thing shared to Twitter, shared to send to WhatsApp.
Oh my, you see, this is they're connecting everything.
Yeah.
But the price of oil, literally, because it's been going down, 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 because manufacturing has been way down. People aren't driving anywhere. There's no need for this glut, supposedly, of crude oil and even the worst, bulgur oil. So they said that the price of oil actually went into negative number territory. You could buy a drum of light, sweet, crude, what do they call it? Unprocessed? Unrefined. Thank you so much. Unrefined, because it is vulgar oil. Unrefined oil for minus $36. Did you hear about this? That means that they would pay you to take the oil off their hands. You want to talk about cycling through history? I was alive in, 1977, 78, when OPEC had the world over a barrel, quite literally. Mm-hmm. And then suddenly a drum of oil was $150, $200. Their gas prices were $5 if you could get it. And there was odd and even days, and cars would line up around the block on Tuesdays or Thursdays, or it was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday car to just get filled. And by the time you would start at the back of a line, and an hour and a half later, you would burn so much gas that you use half a tank just filling your tank with gasoline. And the gasoline back $4 or $5. And because there was such a terrible oil shortage back in the day. Or it was a natural resources. It's not forever replenishing. We all figured by now, considering how the world is growing and growing and manufacturing, and countries that were once, quote unquote, third world are now already second world in terms of what they're producing and making in China and stuff. We should have been out of oil by now. There should be no oil, okay? And had the car manufacturers not kept people from making electric cars and had, politicians and lobbyists kept the solar industry down, we wouldn't care. We wouldn't have needed any oil because we would have all these alternative sources of energy, right? Sources of power. Instead, we kept relying on oil. Everybody forgot, thank God, the Jimmy Carter years. The Reagan came in, people had some money, and they're like, let's get some bigger gas guzzling cars because they're really cool. And people are stupid. We know this. We know this from all the people that I see walking around when I go back and forth to the supermarket without masks. People are dumb, So they figure, and yet maybe they're not so dumb because right now we're in a situation where there is more oil. I'm surprised the Arabs aren't dumping it into the Gulf just to get rid of it. Just to say, nobody's looking, let's drive up the price a little bit, right? minus $36 for a drum of oil. They'll pay you to take it away. Of course, there's costs involved because you have to take it and then you have to keep it and store it somewhere. So it's not suddenly free. And besides, how many of us have a backyard big enough? Well, I guess if you're in Greeley, Colorado, if you have a farm big enough to house fracking, you can put a bunch of oil drums on there and make a tidy sum. Because oil is not going to be this cheap forever or for a long time. But didn't it occur to you, it's like, if I can get some friends together, right? Friends with big backyards, we'll buy 10 oil drums and just let them sit, we'll hold them there. It doesn't spoil, it doesn't go bad. It's not like we're buying milk, right? It's not like we're opening a sperm bank. There's oil. You just put in a drum, you let it sit, and then you let this COVID crisis go its merry way. You let a year or 2 or 3 go by and things cycle and things change as they do. And suddenly oil will go, and then it'll be back to $3.50, $4 a gallon. And then a drum will be $80 to $100 a drum. And now, you start selling that light sweet crude gallon by gallon by gallon, and you're set for life. So I think oil is still really cheap. If anybody wants to go in with me, I'll pay the minus $36 gladly, fine. If you've got the backyard space, and we'll do some deals. Think about it. Just a thought here from Dave on Dave's Gone By on this Saturday, April 25th, 2020. We're calling this episode Lewny Tunes because our guest is going to be indie musician Jeffrey Lewis. He's been, I wouldn't call him necessarily an outsider artist. He's much more of an indie, and there was this movement that started about 25, 30 years ago called anti-folk. And it was still folk and folk rock and folk pop music where it was a little rough-edged. It's kind of quirky, sometimes autobiographical, very witty and clever in a certain way, very New York based. A lot of things were connected to a venue on the Lower East Side of Manhattan called Sidewalk of New York or Sidewalk New York. Now, a bunch of these artists played there and knew each other. It was a scene, right? And Jeffrey Lewis became part of this anti-folk scene. Well, that scene is kind of gone, but he's still here, very much so, and very much making new music. He had a new album come out last year, and it's real good. He's also got a new song out for COVID that you can go see on YouTube, but not right now because you're watching me. Jeffrey Lewis should be a lot of fun to talk to on Dave's Gone By. Unfortunately, I'm not the one who's going to be talking to him because Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches, will be doing the interview with Jeffrey Lewis. So that should be a lot of fun. And speaking of Rabbi Sol Solomon, we're going to play the audio of his appearance this week as part of a theater festival. Now check this out. This is, Rabbi Sol Solomon, he did his stage show a few years ago called Shalom Dammit, an evening with Rabbi Sol Solomon. He did it off Broadway at the Richmond Shepherd Theater, and he did it later on at the Roy Arias Theater, and he just did a reading again last year at the Dramatists Guild Foundation. So he's still out there, he's still pushing this show, he still wants to do it somewhere, and not just, he's Jewish. He's not going to give it away for free on the internet. You got to pay for it. Even though you can see an early version of the show for free on YouTube just by looking for Shalom Dammit and his name. But here's the deal. And also you can go to his website, shalomdammit.com. But Rabbi Sol wants to be back in the theater game, and being the poor schlemiel that he is, he's thinking of this right now when there's no theater. It's like, hey, he's thinking, I can probably get a theater really cheap right now. These things that cost, $700 a day to rent to do 2 shows are like, hey, come on in. We're use the space. Of course, you can't invite anybody to see it, but the rabbi is such a narcissist anyway, it doesn't really matter. He'll get up on stage and he'll just start doing it. But here's the deal. He likes the idea of being theatrical, of putting his stuff out there. And he read about this festival that was conjured up by a Brooklyn theater troupe called Irondale Ensemble Company. Irondale Ensemble has been around. They're an experimental and kind of not physical, but an experiential theater troupe on some level. And they've got this big space in Brooklyn, right? And so they're not putting on any shows at the moment. They got to cancel a bunch of things, but like so many theater companies, they're trying to prove, hey, we're still alive, we're still here, we want to keep our name out there, and hey, if you can donate anything, we'd love it, because I'm sure most of their actors aren't paid to begin with, but they have staff and they have stuff to do, and they have to keep going for however long this COVID thing's going on. So they said, hey, it's April, or gonna be April 23rd, Shakespeare's birthday. Why not have a theater festival that will be devoted to Shakespeare online, and we just get anybody who wants to participate to participate. Now, Rabbi Sol wouldn't tell you that part. Rabbi Sol would say, hey, I'm going to be in a theater festival, and among the other people in this festival are, or were scheduled to be Katie Huffman, friend of the neighborhood. She's a friend of the neighborhood, so is Daphne Rubin Vega taking part. Ray Fiennes, one of the great actors of the generation, Rufus Wainwright, Michael Musto, like so, all these big names sprinkled among the people taking part in Irondale Ensemble's Shakespeare Sonnet Marathon. And we're going to do this, we're going to go from noon until 8 o'clock at night on Shakespeare's birthday, and all these people will pick a sonnet and do it live on virtual, digitally. No, obviously it's not a theater festival physically anywhere.
Irondale, right? Irondale.
Irondale, like hill and dale, Irondale Ensemble. Well, the theater itself is in Brooklyn. Everybody is working from their homes, obviously. And so they did it on Wednesday or Thursday, April 23rd, whenever Shakespeare's birthday was this week, I guess Thursday. And people tuned in, and all these celebrities and non-celebrities and folks took part, getting about just enough time to do a sonnet and say a little something about it. Well, Rabbi Sol could not resist this opportunity.
Was it Sonnet Fest?
It was called Sonnet Marathon. Sonnet-thon would have been better. That would have been Sonnet-thon. But Rabbi Sol took part. And wonderfully, thank goodness.
Can I put the link in the thing?
To which?
Facebook.
Yeah, do it up. Rabbi Sol took part in this. And what's lovely is we were able to save the video of him doing it, because it went actually pretty well, I like to think.
Say what they said.
Well, here's the deal. He did Sonnet 30, which is a sad little sonnet about how when you're thinking back on your life, all you think of is really the bad and negative and the dead people and the things you did wrong and the people you lost. But in the end, it's got sort of a happy ending. Okay, so Rabbi Sol chooses that sonnet to do, and he prepared a little piece about it, like a mini rabbinical reflection based on what's in the sonnet.
Yeah. Irondale Shakespeare Sonnet Marathon Rock.
Cool. Yeah, and he got some good reviews on it. People were watching and chatting live while it was going on. A couple of people said it was very funny, which is
they said.
So don't give it away, because you don't want to give away the comedy bit until we play it.
No, just say he's funny, and then the next one said he's very funny, and then somebody said something about the comedy, and the guy said
That really good. Don't say it because
one of the founders said, you're going to be a very hard act to follow.
Rabbi, yeah, that's a Terry Grease was one of the organizers of this whole thing. He is one of the founders and people who run Irondale. And after the rabbi got through, he's like, Rabbi, you're going to be a very tough act to follow, and don't ever call us again.
I didn't say that.
No, you didn't say that part. But it was very nice. I mean, it was early in the broadcast. It was early. Yeah, I guess it's a broadcast. Yeah. Early in the show. It was close to noonish, actually, and the thing was going to run another 8 hours. So to hear that, the rabbi was just filled with nachas. It was filled with joy. And I think he deserved it. So we can't show the video on here now, although I posted it on Facebook yesterday because the rabbi forced me to at gunpoint. But so you can watch that at your leisure. But let's play it. Let's hear, because it is a sonnet, it's verbal. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon doing sonnet number 30 for the marathon. Where's my iTunes? There it is. Doing sonnet number 30 as part of Irondale Ensemble's sonnet marathon a couple of days ago. Shalom, hello.
Hi, Dave.
Shalom. Well, actually, this is Rabbi Sol Solomon. Shalom to you. I am. Dave has recruited me to do this. Great. So shalom to you. Hello.
Shalom. Nice to see you. Where are you?
I'm in my shul, my little temple here, basically in a closet in the temple where we're all from each other, which I like. Yes.
What part of the world are you in?
Oh, I live in my own head, essentially. So I'm everywhere and nowhere all at the same time. Are you the Irondale Ensemble head macher there?
I'm one of the people who founded the company. I'm Terry Grease. Nice to meet you, Rabbi.
Nice to meet you too. Oh, I'm requesting recording permission so that I can record this and show this to my followers, of whom
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Terry. Very, very nice to meet you. Tell me when I'm ready to go or whatever.
Great. What are you going to choose for? What are you going to read for us?
Oh, it will be sonnet number 30.
Great.
When the session with Sweet Silent Part. And so am I on deck or people watching this?
No, you're right. You're going live right now. You're here.
Wait, come on. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Let me begin. Well, shalom, damn it. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. And I am delighted to be taking part in Irondale Ensemble's Sonnet Marathon to honor April 23rd, the day William Shakespeare was born. It's also the day he died, but why be negative? And besides, who needs sanitizer when we can all be sonetized? Damn it. I have chosen to read sonnet number 30 in Roman numerals, that's XXX, in Hebrew, Yud Yud Yud. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought, I summon up remembrance of things past. I sigh, the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye unused to flow, for precious friends hid in death's dateless night, and weep afresh love's long since canceled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell o'er the sad account of fore bemoaned moan, which I knew pay, as if not paid before. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. Now, what do we learn from this sonnet? First, it's ideal for Jews. It's depressing, it's about regret, and how tempting it is to rehash miseries over and over. O'er and over. The Schmendrick in this poem sighs over spilled milk, cries over dead people, grieves over old pussy, and then complains that he's wasting precious time being unhappy. Freud would have a field day with this putz. But of course, Shakespeare being universal, we are the putz. Even before the pandemic, who among us hasn't wasted decades on worry, fear, disappointment, inertia, and that most Jewish of bugaboos, guilt? The silver lining is when you have someone who brightens your day, a friend, a pet, an anatomically correct inflatable rubber Gal Gadot doll. Even if your loved one is merely a memory, it can erase all that soreness of what Rabbi Tom Lehrer once called your drab, wretched lives. And so, my dear friends, in this time of woes and grievances, where we can't dab our drowning eyes because there's no goddamn toilet paper, remember the good times and the good people of those times. This is Rabbi Sol Solomon wishing you sweet thoughts and ended sorrows, and Charmin, to ply. Shalom, and thank you.
Rabbi, you're going to be a tough act to follow. Thanks for being with us today.
Shalom.
Shalom to you, and stay healthy and well.
All of I, you too.
Bye.
I'm looking at Facebook here. It shows that I'm supposedly live for about 2 minutes.
Okay, good.
So maybe I'm live.
It's live via internet, yeah.
Maybe I'm live. Maybe I'm not. Maybe my handkerchief is filled with old snot, which it is, by the way. Want to remind you that coming up on this fine programming, hasn't it been wonderful so far? We've got Jeffrey Lewis, the musician from the Lower East Side, and still, I think, what are you looking for? From from the Lower East Side. He'll be talking to the one, the only, the Jewish Rabbi Sol Solomon, just in a little less than an hour from now, talking about his rather long career in music. He's put out a bunch of albums, both solo and with a band, with other collaborators. Jeffrey Lewis is his name, and you're definitely going to want to hear from him. Can't play a lot of his music, unfortunately, because of copyright stuff, but we'll try and get a couple of songs that he did on YouTube, and maybe the rabbi can impose upon him to pick up a guitar and even do it. We're not forcing him, but it'd be nice, wouldn't it? So anyway, Jeffrey Lewis, Rabbi Sol, plus all the other usual stuff we do. For example, our Today Yesterday quiz for April 25th, which is today, 2020. Also, we'll go inside Broadway. There's a surprising amount of news of the Rialto this week. So we got some Broadway news. We'll have a new Wretched Pun of Destiny all about eggs, and a Colorado Limerick of the Damned. And boy, this one is out there for Cotopaxi, Colorado. Bet you didn't even know that even existed. Cotopaxi, Colorado. Oh, and there I am. So just lower that down.
I stopped the sound and you kept talking.
I do. I tend to do that. Okay. So a lot of stuff to do. But before we do that, anything else you want to talk about, or how was your week?
I just shared it on my timeline. That's what I had to do. My week was good. I'm just tired. Like,
yeah.
I think honestly, like, it's just tough. I think, the more people I talk to, students, friends, people, everybody's being touched by this in every state. And I just feel for people. I feel for people. I feel very strongly for people. And I think I've been very lucky that a friend of mine sent me an article from the New York Times about some older adults doing really well. But yeah, but mostly people are quite affluent or have access. So I feel quite lucky.
Because if you think about it, what do old people do? What do? They sit, old people. They sit.
Just stop it.
I know you're a gerontologist.
No, but it's not about age. Like, it's about us versus somebody who's living in a, highly populated apartment building with no access to food or water. I mean, that's the difference.
Water?
Yeah.
We don't have no access to water.
Maybe the water's turned off in the building. There's people. This is the difference. I mean, COVID is like. This is my whole problem with like the eugenics and Darwinian and Malthusian philosophies, is it's not based on any health or intelligence or moral characteristic. It's based on money. People with more money survive because they can get better access to resources. and it affects people like communities of color in New York are getting hit hardest.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what it just upsets me that this is the world we live in. It's upsetting.
Yeah, it is upsetting. It's also, but there is also a sense that there was an article, I guess it was in the New York Times, where they interview old people.
Oh yeah.
And it's the New York Times, so they're interviewing white elder, in good condition, in nice places, old
beautiful
people.
Apartments.
Yeah. Apartments that they've got rent control from when
a
it was.
Library that has, everything. I mean, gorgeous.
Yeah. And so these people are like, this COVID thing's not bad. Well, it kind of nice. So I miss maybe going to my friend, but really not so much. I have all my food delivered.
Tell your listeners what your day is like.
Well, I have my goddamn days.
Yesterday, what was your big excitement of the day? Your work.
Groceries. Oh,
no.
Yesterday?
What did you do for 3 hours?
Well, it really, I'll give them credit. It wasn't terrible. It was actually watchable, listenable, personable, but I'm working. I'm technically still working. Sorry, just asked me to save. Good. The video of the first part of it.
Save yourself.
Save myself. So
save somebody.
I kind of have
David,
to.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Are you in Frank and Harrison Ford?
A little Bob Dylan reference there, and Dylan did put out another song last week. Go figure. He's. You want to talk about opportunism now? When he put out the first song, and we go, it's because it's COVID times and people are sequestered, and it's this thing that makes people reflect about the last 30, 40, 50 years. In America, right? And all of that. But then he put out another song. It's like, oh, no, he's just pushing a new album. Which is fine. That's what we're all these actors and stuff who have nothing to do in their home and they're joining the festivals that we've been talking about. Okay, it's about they're actors. They have to act. They want to do it. But it's also like, oh, who'll be watching me? What potential person I'll be working with or acting with later on is going to see me and go, ooh, when I direct Coriolanus in a year or two, I want that person. It's like, we get it. Everybody has to self-market even now. But technically, I'm working still. I'm being paid to work, which is wonderful, for a job that I haven't been to in a month and a half because I can't. I'm working in a place where at least I physically have to be there.
Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype.
What is Cookie Monster talking about?
Hello.
That's like how Cookie talks.
Hello.
Oh, hi, Cookie. Oh, you're good.
Maybe Potato looks like Cookie. Get Potato.
I mean, no.
Look at the eyes. Look at the eyes.
Yeah, they do have. Hi. Oh, me so hungry for Cookie Potato. I don't even know where the hell we're going. This is what happens to when you're cooped up for a month and a half. A dance festival.
Based on Como. Como.
This is
Potato has developed it to honor Como.
Yeah, remember a couple of weeks ago we were talking about how in one of his speeches to New York, Governor not Mario, what the hell? Andrew Cuomo was talking to his brother Chris, who was getting over COVID. He actually had a bad streak of it. And Chris was saying, yes, I had temperature, it was really bad, I hallucinated. And I thought of you in a ballerina costume, waving a little magic wand and making everybody better. And Governor Cuomo was like, yeah, thank you, bro. Thank you so much. Well, Potato wants to reenact that moment. Potato wants to reenact the dream of Chris Cuomo.
It's like in a carousel.
Yes. Da-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. Da-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum. La, 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 la. Wait, he needs his magic wand.
Oh, God.
La, 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 la. Where is the governor? All the women love him. And there's me.
Oh, his shoe fell off.
Oh, no. Oh, Mom always liked you better. You miserable son of a bitch. And now Potato.
He's devolving into hate. Yeah.
Well, it's modern dance. It goes everywhere. It's not, swans and stuff. It's potatoes. Woo! Don't get the COVID no more. You're all cured. And seen.
Very good.
Well
Potato.
done.
Here, let me fix your shoe. I think Potato will be cast in a big maybe a big dance part. Look,
Wouldn't that be great if he was?
I think he
No.
could do it.
So what the hell? Oh, so here's where I was on this. I'm supposed to be working for the place that I work for.
Or working.
How's that for grammar? Technically, even though there's no work I can physically do for this place because I can't get into the place, and I'm not supposed to. It's not like I can sort of say, "Hey, I'll take a bullet and I'll go into the place."
No, I'll tell you, because half the not the town we're in, but the town next to us is a hot spot.
Yeah.
And the library is a hybrid of those two towns. So they're.
Well, tell everyone I work in a library. Yes, I do work in our local library.
I would not want to. If I were working there, most of the people coming in are from the high hotspot area. I would be like, oh hell no, that's like a safety hazard.
Oh please! When they were talking about the books that came in after they closed the doors of the place, they're saying, well, it'd be nice if we could come in and shelve them, but first we're going to leave them sit for 3 days.
I think they're very smart to stay closed, because if you're in a they're like an endemic in the pandemic. I mean, I would be like, you know what?
I know, but once books come in, I mean, I said literally, I would figure, okay, nobody will take the books, check them in, put them on the shelves, and like, well, first we'll let them sit in the carts for 3 days untouched. So whatever's on them, I don't even think of this stuff.
Well, but you said the children's books are horrible. Children drool and
eat them. They always were.
But I'm saying, so that's like COVID central. Like if a child is like pooing on a book.
Are you hearing of any kids getting this?
I'm on the other end of the scale listening, but I don't know.
I think everybody, it's all like 30, 99.
You want the data? So I'll give you
what is the data on kids from 0 to 10?
Well, I'm looking here. So it says for people 65 and over, they account for 45% of hospitalizations, 53% of ICU admissions, and 80% of deaths. So wow. So the majority of people, even if young ones get it, they're not dying from it, and so it's
also the young ones are getting preferential treatment, because if there's a glut in the, and this is true in the hospital, in the emergency room, and you get someone who's in their 40s with COVID bad and needs a ventilator, and someone in their 80s and they got one working ventilator, they're going to let the 80s person die.
Sad. It's so sad.
Well, yeah, that's not a wealth thing. That's just a how many years do they have left in the first place
this
thing.
Is like an age-based way of killing people.
But the thing is, as horrible and gross as children are, and whatever they touch and drool on and wipe their tushies with.
I think apparently we have a lot of drooly children. Like there's children who are normal children, and then there are extra drooly. It's like pets. Like you can have a pug. Yeah. You're liquid. The other day you spit in my eye while talking. Yeah. You were just generally talking. If you were a child, your book would be saturated. Yeah.
Well, also back when I had allergies terribly, my nose was always running. I always had a handkerchief. It was like I was grossness. I used to keep my handkerchief on my desk in elementary school. And one time the teacher said, "Dave, take your handkerchief off." It didn't occur to me that it was gross. I was just like, I need it. It's right here. I use it 150 times a day. And she said, "No, put it in your pocket."
Were you ever taught manners?
And I thought, I'll put it in my pocket. But my pocket is wet. It's wet with pee. Because I used to pee my pants when I was in like at least let my handkerchief stay dry.
Save yourself, Hanky. Save yourself.
Oh, I was quite a child.
You were a joy. You were a joy.
Oh, true story.
I had a kindergarten teacher. There was two. There was one that was a sweet, cookie, loving, adorable one. And I had the one who was like, Frau, like she put fear into God, And she was. And so she had half her pinky was missing, and she said it got like run over on a railroad track. She was like badass. And in our classroom, I think I peed myself once. We had the highest rate of wetting oneself as a child because of her. And after my class, she retired because she was so vicious. And everyone, like all the parents would come, and this was a Catholic school. The nuns got tired of it because the kids would just constantly pee. And then they gave us. So our community, of course, was ethnic, right? They send this boy who speaks Anthony, who only speaks Italian. And so he would just color everything in red, and he was her nemesis. And she would scream at him. So he would mash the red crayon into coloring constantly and just wet constantly. And then one day we had a fire drill or something. We couldn't find him. He hunkered down in the closet. And he was hiding in the closet. And he ate everyone's sandwich. Then we couldn't find everyone's lunch, and he ate everyone's sandwich while peeing and coloring bread in the closet.
Tell me, please,
Yeah.
that you've kept up with this guy on Facebook.
No.
Oh, come on. Do you remember his last? Don't say it, but do you remember his
I
last
don't.
name?
I think he probably is an institution because we tortured him.
You know,
What?
we have an Anthony where we work. And
Well, this guy, but mine didn't speak English, and he just, and then the community was very torn between. So Austrians like straddle Germans and Italians. We were
if
the
they're
middle.
lucky, yeah.
But nobody really dug him because it was very dramatic. It was like I felt so bad for the kid. He would just sit there like scrum.
Yeah, but I would love to know if he grew up to be like a wealthy industrialist
I don't
billionaire
know.
or something,
I don't know.
or a serial killer. Either
I'm
way,
sure.
I'm akin to Pete, but first I peep.
Yeah, I don't. Yes. He had a unhealthy bladder.
Well, I did too. I didn't want to go up and use the bathroom.
Wow.
It was, and I thought if I peed in my pants, no one would see it. It would just stay in my pants. It didn't occur to me that I would pee so much that there would be a puddle by my seat. There's a great Jeffrey Lewis song called Springtime, and he talks about springtime in a puddle. I would make springtime in a puddle, like once or twice a week in elementary school, because who cared? Who knew? It wouldn't think.
Other children see you peeing.
Only if it dripped down your leg. If it didn't, anyway, how did we get here? Oh, well, yes, I have a day job. Well, you asked. You told me to tell what I did yesterday, and that was the thing.
We got
Yeah, because I don't. There's no work I can do generally, even though I have to sort of say, in order not to lose my job or not to have the government cut funding, we're all supposed to say that we did work. And some of the folks who work in the library do have work to do. They're dealing with customers. They're virtually. They have to answer questions, have to do research, and so forth. And they're working. But there's others among us who are not of that pay grade for sure. And we don't do that sort of thing. We actually handle books. And when there's no books to handle, there's nothing to do. But we still have to make believe. I was like, oh, okay, I checked out these library websites. I did this app and so forth, and tell the government it's fine. And I have been doing it, government. So in case you hold this video against me, I've actually been doing it. There you go. So, but every once in a while, we actually have to do something, all of us. And it's either a meeting of all staff, or they made us take, and it's the dumbest thing to do this right now. It had been pre-scheduled months earlier, but we're supposed to take this seminar on dealing with difficult people, because we work in a public place, a public space, and it's a library. Well, the library, you get the concatenation of eccentrics and homeless people, and that's just the staff. Yeah. But we get them. And we get people who are a little bit scary, a little bit disturbed, and we get a lot of teenagers who are a big, noisy, messy pain in the ass, and children running around, and parents who are nuts. It's just, and what's wonderful is how many people who work in a library situation and they're either at the front desk or they're reference librarians or regular librarians, and they really don't like people. They got they took this job because there's no other job they wanted, and they love books. And they figure, oh, I get to be around books all day. No, you don't. You get to be around annoying people all day, which is exactly the thing you don't want in your job. You would have been much better off taking a clerical thing in a building somewhere and getting your government stuff and your benefits and pension that way, right? But and I'm lucky in that sense, is that I really don't have to deal much with the public. I've got to deal with, my crazy coworkers is one thing, but them.
Now, how did you learn to deal with that difficult situation?
So they make us take this seminar that was supposed to be in person, and then they did it virtually yesterday, of dealing with difficult people. And it's funny, when I got the email for it, everybody CC me and said, that means you, Dave. Go figure. And so it's this woman talking, and I swear to God, you know how sometimes you figure, okay, it's a 3-hour slot for this material. It's a 3-hour seminar and stuff, and we'll be done by 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 40. This woman went to 2 hours, 59 minutes, and 30 seconds on this seminar. We had a 15-minute break for pee and lunch and so forth. And it's all these very sensible, very logical and very good ways of diffusing situations of when you, sometimes it's right to avoid conflict, sometimes you have to engage and do the conflict in the right way so as not to escalate, but so as to make sure that the other person is hearing you and you are hearing them, and all this kind of new speak, but it wasn't new agey. It wasn't, it was perfectly fine. It was nothing, nothing I could really make fun of it about, which sucks because here I am trying to be funny about it, and there's nothing to be funny about. It was a very sensible
give
seminar.
An example.
Well, one of the things that they talked about, which did interest me, was the last hour was all about different personality types that you have to deal with in your job. If you're surrounded by staff and all these people, how do you deal with them? What kind of personality are you? So you filled out these little grid thing of, are you this kind of person or that kind of person? Are you this kind of person, that kind of person? Do you like working alone? Do you like working with other people? Do you like telling jokes? Do you like being left, etc. One after the other. And then they put you on a grid of 4 different types of human, as it were, in a work situation. So you're either like the director, Führer, overlord type, or the analytical thinker type, or you're the the howdy and people person type, or the gregarious talky type. These 4 things, and where you fit on this scale is what you know about yourself, and also you can figure out the people who are difficult that you're dealing with. Well, where are they on that scale? So if I'm a thinker,
I'm direct, but I'm also analytical, right, by my training.
Yeah.
And you had to stand in groups one time. They said, go in this corner if you're that. People said, one woman said to me, "You're analytical," and I was like, "F you." I was like, "Of course I'm analytical." I'm like, "You don't think I'm analytical? Like, really? People can only be one? That's so overly simplistic. We're a combination."
Well, one thing I realized that in the job I'm in, I fit very, very strongly into sort of the analytical thinker, not because I have to put any thought into my job. It's mostly physical machine, almost factory-like work in a very white collar sense. And yet my personality is that of, leave me alone, I want to do this right, but I mean, that's the thing. I don't really give a shit if I do it right. That's kind of the weird part of where I fit on this angle. I'm just I want to get her done, and yet that doesn't put me in the get done side of being overlord and Führer, which I was in other jobs that I've had, where I was middle management and had much more responsibility and much better pay, and I love the job a whole lot more. It's kind of like, but in this particular job, I'm thinker, analytical, which just means leave me alone. my shit thing. I don't want to deal with people. I want to think of all the different permutations of how something is done before I give an answer, and boom. So it's kind of cool to know that, I guess, about myself. I don't know. Or to think when I'm dealing with people who might be difficult to me, to say, aha, if I'm this kind of person, and I know they're that kind of person, I can't approach them in this way. I've got to figure, they want me to be this way. Whatever. It's 3 hours out of my life. I'm paid for it. It's done. I'm still going to hate the people I hate and like the people I like. And it's really as simple as that. Yeah, I know. But anyway, speaking of things I do like and love, I love doing this program. It's called Dave's Gone By, and we do it live every Saturday from 9 until noon or thereabouts here on Facebook. Apologies for having our technical difficulties earlier, but we're back. We've got Jeffrey Lewis coming up in about half an hour. He'll be talking to Rabbi Sol Solomon. Jeffrey Lewis, an indie songwriter from New York and still in New York. He's actually cloistered in his apartment, as everybody is in New York at the moment. He will be talking to Rabbi Sol. That's why we're calling the show, this episode, Lewny Tunes. It's our 743rd episode of the program, live on this April 25th, 2020. My darling and adorable wife, Joyce, is here. Potatoes are here. They're being very active part of this program. We've also got our Colorado Limerick of the Damned coming up in a while, the Wretched Pun of Destiny, all about eggs, our Yesterday quiz, and I forgot about Greeley Crimes and Old Times. They're not doing many old times right now because the Greeley Tribune has currently furloughed all its all its columnists, but they are doing still cop because I think the guy is a crime writer and does other pieces for the Trib, and he's paid for them. But and what else do we have? And our Today Yesterday quiz and Inside Broadway. So a lot of stuff. Is there anything else we have to talk about before we get to the heart, as it were, of this Dave's Gone By program, which, by the way, is brought to you in part by Hewlett Minuteman Press, the copy kings of Broadway. They are a necessity, folks. These folks are part of the essential services of companies and organizations that can stay open during this whole COVID thing, even during a shutdown, because they deal with UPS, they deal with mailing things. They're important. Hewlett Minuteman is. So if you don't need them now, keep them in mind for when your store or business reopens, or certainly if you have an online business. Hewlett Minuteman Press, they've been owned and operated by the Toron family since the mid-1970s. And if you tell them Dave sent you, you get 10% off any job, big or small. So that means whether you need new business cards, because we're all going to be out of work in a little bit, or if you have holiday and wedding invitations to do, if you want banners and flyers, or if you just want plain old copies, thousands of them, or one or two of them, Hewlett Minuteman Press is the place to go, and 10% off if you mention me, Dave's Gone By. Give them a call, 516-569-5577, area code 516-569-5577, Hewlett Minuteman Press. They are the copy kings. Well, let's make sure, what shall we do next, my dear? Because I can't, I don't know if I go on Facebook, if I can see messages or anything like that.
I think you gotta, I can't see stuff, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do some of our stuff.
I mean, if you do the quiz, just do it.
Yeah.
You might have to do it a little bit differently.
Well, I'll just have to do it without, I'll just save time. And if Jeff and Cynthia are watching, they're my cousins, and they tend to play the quiz that we have every week. It's called Today Yesterday. It's a trivia quiz about things that happened on the date in history. So today is April 25th, 2020. There have been a lot of other April 25ths. What happened on those dates? I know that you know that there is an answer. It's kind of a long way to lead into the theme music for this, which I can't play a lot of because of copyright issues. But yes, it is our Today Yesterday quiz. Oh. Yeah, it's okay. I forgot to bring in my all-important folder, which has the big question mark that I hold up while you're thinking. I think we can live without it. Yeah, think of a question mark in your head as we do our Today Yesterday quiz. So it's simple. I ask a question, you try to come up with an answer, no for Googling or wikiing or binging. Just see if you can think about it. I'll give you a few seconds, and then I shall give the answer. Okay, and I do have my musical thing. I do. Are you ready? I do believe you are. Here we go. Today, yesterday, the year 1719, published today, was a book considered to be the first realistic novel of English fiction. It was about the castaway Robinson Crusoe, and it was written by whom? I'm going to read the question one more time. Published today, yesterday, was a book considered the first really realistic novel in English fiction, 1719. It was about the castaway Robinson Crusoe. Who wrote it? Okay, I'll give it 5 more seconds. Hun, do you want to take a stab at this one?
Give me one more time.
Okay, who wrote Robinson Crusoe?
Oh, the guy down the street, Rocco.
No, it's not Rocco. I'll give you a hint. He's not the friend.
Oh, William Dafoe.
No, it wasn't well close. Not Willem Dafoe. It was Daniel Dafoe.
Oh.
Daniel Dafoe, born, and did you know this? And this is actually true. Daniel Dafoe, his birth name was Daniel Foe.
Oh.
This is not a joke. He was Daniel
Why
Foe.
with the D?
He changed it to Defoe to make himself sound more aristocratic. So there you go. That is not a joke. That is actually,
I like that.
yeah. Okay, that was our first yesterday question. Question number 2, we moved to 1792. Speaking of folks, yesterday, a baron asked Rouget de Lisle to write a rallying song. De Lisle wrote Chant de guerre pour l'armée de Rennes. English translation is,
I like pamplemousses.
Joyce says, I like pamplemousse. No, it's not about grapefruits. It actually translates to War Song for the Army of the Rhine.
Oh, nice.
So the melody of this song became really popular, although Napoleon and a couple of French kings banned it for a while. What is the song? And it's not, okay, so here's a song. It's a song that was published today, or it was written. It was actually a baron asked this guy, Rouget de Lisle, to write the song. He wrote it that day, and we don't really remember the lyrics to Chant de guerre pour l'armée de Rennes, but we all know the melody to it, and what do we know it as? Okay.
Is it Funky Cold Medina?
Not Funky Cold Medina. You want to give another guess?
Oh, Me So Horny.
It's not Oh Me So Horny. You were close for that one. No, it's. Oh no, wait. Let me do it. Let me play it as it were, or at least the rhythm of it. Which is called the
Shores of Tripoli. I don't know.
No. It's not. It's dun 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 da 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 da.
Oh, it's the song from Larry the Bird.
No, it's not. It's not vocabulary.
Vocabulary?
No, you know that. What? It's a very important.
David, I
So-
don't know.
You do know. You knew it. You knew. You
I
got
don't
it.
know the name though. You know I'm a ding dong.
It is the national anthem of
Of
France,
your pants.
which is called the.
French national anthem.
There it is. Think of places in France. No? No. Well, they call it the Marseillaise. That was what was written today, back in 1792, by Rouget de Lisle, the rallying song. Okay, we got another yesterday question for you. We move all the way now to 1898, April 25th. Although years later, the Cuban Missile Crisis ended peacefully, Cuba did figure into a serious conflict that began on this date and lasted 3.5 months. What was it? Okay, give me some thought. Or I need some Cuban music. Oye, como va? He's not Cuban. What's it?
Oye, mi canto. Think of Benefisto Club.
Right.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, dun, do, do, dun, 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 do, dun, dun, dee, dun, 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 push, push, push. Okay, I'll read the question again. Although years later, the Cuban Missile Crisis ended peacefully, as I drop my thing here, Cuba did figure into a conflict that involved the United States, and it began on this date, and it lasted 3.5 months. What was it? Darn it, I keep dropping this thing.
What are you doing with the dropping?
Are you ready to take some guesses? You want to give want to try for a answer? What, babe? Choice is well, yeah, no, that's me. Want to try for a answer?
Give me again. I'm slow today.
Some kind of conflict began today in.
Oh, the Franco-Prussian conflict.
No, not a bad guess. It is also a hyphenate, but it's a one that involved the United States. And Cuba had to do with it.
Oh, the Franco-American War.
It wasn't Franco-American. They make spaghetti.
Spanish-American.
Bingo!
There we go.
There you go.
I got stuck in France.
Oh, the Spanish-American War had its day. Today was the day that the Spanish-American War started. I didn't realize it lasted less than 4 months, but there you go.
It
All right.
lasted shorter than COVID.
That's by the end of this thing. It's
Can
true.
it be a war if it's less than COVID?
Well, remember Grenada? That was the best war ever.
You say Grenada, I say Granada.
Granada. Okay. Grenada is where they crunch the data. That was a Dadaist response there.
I can't share you. It makes me crazy.
Oh well. We'll have 3 people watching on this show. That's just the way it goes. All right. In 1925, we're continuing our Today Yesterday quiz on Dave's Gone By. 1925, elected today as president of Germany was this general who won a second term, but kept power by reluctantly, appointing Hitler as chancellor. Can you name this general? Little bit of history here. All the way back in 1925.
Can you see if Cynthia? Oh, you can't see if Cynthia.
I can't see anything. Yeah.
I don't want to log in your Facebook because it'll boot you out.
Yeah.
You look very cute today, honey.
Why, thank you, darling.
You look very feisty.
Elected today as president of Germany this was 1925 on this date, was a general. He won a second term on this date, but a few years later he won a second term. And the way he kept power at that point was by appointing Hitler as chancellor, even though he did it reluctantly. Name this general. Hun, do you want to take a step? Wait, let me just count down.
I used to be able to see Cynthia and Jeff, and I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not showing it. Yeah. So I'll give you a hint if you don't know this. Oh,
Colonel Sanders.
No. Think Captain Beefheart.
DJ Jeff. Oh, Hot Dog. Captain Hot Dog. Captain Beefheart.
Well, what about Captain Beefheart? He had a song about, look up in the sky, there's a dirigible there.
A Zeppelin?
Which is also a, yes.
Which is a dirigible, it's a hot air balloon, it's a Himmler?
There was never the Himmler blimp.
The Goodyear?
No. This blimp did not do well.
Oh, the one that crashed.
In New Jersey, yes. Or
I forget. Hindenburg.
Yes.
It's a miracle.
There you go.
You look very shocked.
I was so waiting for another wrong answer. I was like,
very shocked on that.
Yes, Paul von Hindenburg.
I'm trying to channel Jeff and Cynthia.
Yeah. When he died in 1934 in office, Hitler dissolved the office of the presidency and took all power, declaring himself Führer. So that's it was Paul von Hindenburg, excuse me, with a U. Okay, we're halfway through our Today Yesterday quiz. I kind of wish Cynthia, maybe Cynthia and Jeff are playing on their own. I think that's great.
We can't see.
1926 is the year. Debuting tonight at La Scala was Puccini's last opera, one that was set in Persia and features the famous aria Nessun Dorma, name the opera. So, if Stefan Zucker's listening, he'll know this one. Okay. Debuting, it was April 25th, 1926. Puccini's last opera, which, by the way, he didn't quite complete. It had to be completed after his death. It debuted at La Scala. The opera itself was set in what was then called Persia and features one of the most famous arias of all time, Nessun Dorma. Can you name the opera? Nessun Dorma. You want to take a stab at this one? It's not Tosca.
It's what's the one I saw with Michal that I almost had a heart attack singing?
I'm not sure. Did you see Bohème with her, or did you see Figaro?
It was an Italian opera, and I was in the
Traviata?
I think so. And I was in those high seats, and I almost had an anxiety attack.
No. The final Puccini opera was Turandot.
Turandot?
Yeah.
I'm not educated in that.
I'm just saying. Well, anyway.
I got no smart.
That was the answer. It was Turandot. I'm probably mispronouncing that. We move up 2 more years to 1928 for our next quiz question on a visit. We were talking about Germany before. On a visit to a school in Germany, Frank Morris came across a beautiful German shepherd that he named Buddy.
Oh.
He brought Buddy back to the States, where he made history. Why?
I think he married Buddy.
It was
How
a
can-
great case of animal
How
husbandry.
can love be wrong, right?
Mm. So here's the question. In 1928, this guy, Frank Morris, was visiting Germany, fell in love with this beautiful dog, a German Shepherd named Buddy, brought him back to the United States. What made them famous?
Was he Rin Tin Tin?
He didn't become Rin Tin. That's a great guess, but no. Want me to take one more guess before I let people know?
Tell me.
Well, no, yeah, yes, no.
Was it Lassie?
Wasn't Lassie. No. It was a very helpful animal.
Was he a bomb sniffer?
No. Frank Morris was blind. He visited Germany where they had a school of, at that point, they were already training dogs to help veterans of World War I who came back with various problems, including sightlessness. So he met a dog there named, it was actually named Kiss in Germany. And this is true. And he brought the dog back to America, renamed it, because if he goes along the streets and here, Kiss, he run into some problems. So he named the dog, but that's true.
Kiss in Germany?
What?
How do you say kiss in Germany?
I don't know.
German.
Maybe they go Kiss.
We say that's Italian.
Yeah. Anyway, so he brought the dog back and started training him, and they became best buddies. And Buddy was the first guide dog in America. He was the very first.
How do you say kiss in German?
Because they were doing it, as I said, in Europe.
Kuss.
Kuss. Oh, Kuss. There you go.
Kuss. Like,
Here,
let's
Kuss.
just give me a kussy.
Yeah.
Kuss, kiss, kussy.
So, and this was kind of cool.
Das Bustle or der Kuss?
Der Kuss. Der Kuss. So romantic, the German. Kuss, Juden.
How do you get your eyebrows to make triangles? I've never had to do that. They have great musculature.
But I can't do the individual
thing. Yeah, but you
thing.
get them to be like peaks. I've never seen that.
Thank you so much. Anyway, the success of Frank Morris and Buddy helped establish the Seeing Eye School for canine guides in America back in the 1920s. Kind of neat.
That's crazy.
Next question in our Yesterday quiz. We moved to I have a lot of questions this week. 1940. Happy 80th birthday to this actor whose first mentor was Lee Strasberg and who was in two major films just last year, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and The Irishman. Name this actor, whom you will probably never guess is 80 years old today.
Me?
Nope.
Me?
So think about this. Think about an actor, method actor. First mentor was Lee Strasberg. And just last year, starred or had major roles in two films, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and especially The Irishman. Can you name him? You want to take a guess?
De Niro.
Close.
Pacino.
Well done. Al Pacino. Alfredo Pacino was actually his
Alfredo.
birth name. It's so weird to think of Al Pacino being 80 years old.
He's a freak.
Why do you say that?
He's a freak. Yeah, but my feet are cold in here.
All right, so go get some socks, but not before we finish up our Yesterday quiz. We have a couple more questions. For example, we move all the way to April 25th, 1978. Introduced by Tim McCarver, as kind of a clue, on the local children's program Captain Noah and His Magical Ark, was this soon-to-be beloved sports mascot. Name him. This was April 25th, 1978. Tim McCarver went on the local children's program Captain Noah and His Magical Ark with this soon-to-be beloved sports mascot. Can you name the mascot?
Timmy the Tiger.
Wasn't Timmy the Tiger. Think green.
Oh, Kermit the Frog.
Not Kermit. No sports mascot.
Oh, that Philadelphia Philly. The wah, wah, wah.
Yes.
Philadelphia Freak in the Hole.
Keep going.
The Philadelphia Filberts. The Philadelphia Freak. The Philadelphia Philly. Philadelphia Phil. Philip. Philipstein. Fluffy. Freak. Phantom.
Listen,
Pandemic.
if your house is really warm right? Really hot house.
Yeah.
And you go up to the top of the house, a little alcove there.
Oh, fan, the Philly fan. Philly fan.
Where's the fan? Up in the...
Oh, Fanatic!
Yes!
What?
You got it. The Philly Fanatic was introduced
And
on
I
this
lived
date.
in Philly. I love Philly.
I would have
so
known
bad.
this one only because I remember it was one of the most, only for someone like me was this a major moment in my life. We were on vacation in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and I realized that television was not the same everywhere. We put on the TV, the news channels were different, the locals, and this was back in the day when there were 3 or 4 stations on the dial.
Remember in Ireland?
And the
TV
affiliate,
was different.
well, that was
too?
much later. That was,
Yeah.
this is when I was a kid. I was probably 8 years old. And we put on the TV, we're there on a Saturday morning, and suddenly instead of Captain Kangaroo, which I didn't like, or Patchwork Family, there's Captain Noah and his Ark. I'm like, what is this? Who is this? I want to watch this. But I wasn't there the day that the Philly Fanatic debuted on that local Philadelphia program. All right, we have a couple more quick questions in our Today Yesterday quiz on Dave's Gone By. On this date, April 25th in 1980, President Jimmy Carter went on television to announce the deaths of 8 U.S. soldiers. How were they killed?
Hostages.
Very well, yeah. What more specific?
I think they got stuck in a Loman's bathroom.
Yeah, they closed the Lomans and nobody went to look in. No, what happened? What went down?
I'm not going to say it.
Why?
I don't like to talk about things.
Okay, well, anyway, Joyce did get the answer right. On this date in 1980, President Carter had to go on television to announce another one of his failures. The day before, he had sent, it had been months into the Iranian hostage crisis, and nothing was happening, and he was a useless president. So he's like, let me try and be the big hero, do the big Reagan thing, and rescue them. So they sent up all these helicopters in the desert to go get the hostages. And 3 of the helicopters crashed. And 8 of the US servicemen were killed, 5 were wounded. And because half of the copters had crashed, they had to abort the mission. And then they announced that they just had a disaster. It was an incredible embarrassment for America. And one of the great reasons that Carter was not reelected. Usually in a war and times of crisis, you elect or re-elect the guy in power like they did with George Bush, God help us. But yeah, no, that just, if everything else didn't cost Jimmy Carter the presidency, that that announcement in 1980 certainly did it. Okay, almost done with our Today Yesterday quiz. Let's see how we're doing with our okay. And Jeffrey Lewis will be joining us shortly. Yeah.
I'm just making sure we don't have any grocery deliveries coming in.
Oh, sure.
Do you want me to make you coffee, baby?
Why don't we wait until we get our guest rolling, and
Okay,
then I can.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be really great.
It's cold in here, no?
I don't feel it.
Okay, because
I'm here. I'm working. I feel the sunshine. I'm.
Yeah, you're on. You're lit.
1985. The next question in our Today Yesterday quiz. 1985. Roger Miller wrote only one Broadway musical, but it was a big hit.
Stuck me in the butt.
No, it was not. No, that's the modern Broadway musical. That's all they write musicals about now. It was Roger Miller wrote this musical, huge hit that opened tonight at Broadway's Eugene O'Neill Theater.
Oh, Long Day's Journey into Night.
Was not Long Day's Journey into Night. Okay. I'll give it one last read through. April 25th, 1985, opening night at the Eugene O'Neill Theater on Broadway, a new musical whose songs were written by Roger Miller. Can you name it?
I can't dance. Don't ask me.
No.
A chorus line.
I'm afraid you boarded the wrong train on this one. That's a clue, folks.
Twain? Mark Twain? Oklahoma?
No.
I don't know.
We're talking about 1985.
I don't know.
Not a small pond, but a
golden pond on the lake.
or
On the sea? Seabird swimming.
smaller than a sea.
River. Old Man River.
What kind of?
Lazy River.
No, not a small one.
Big River.
Ah! Cynthia, Jeff, please come back.
I don't know this stuff. David, listen.
Well, you don't know theater, I know.
I have a very, if you want me to do some data analysis, some,
No, this was a big hit musical.
I don't know this stuff, David. I'm an idiot.
Yeah. Not one of my favorite musicals, by the way, but the Deaf West Theater revived it about 10 years ago in a beautiful production. And it was still, the musical's okay, but it was really, really well done. Anyway, it was Big River that opened back in 1985 on Broadway. Okay, we got one more. You'll get this one, I
I
think.
don't think so.
But it's another Broadway one.
Let's not be hopeful.
Here we go.
Let's be realistic, David.
The date, 1996.
Yeah.
Opening tonight on Broadway. Directed by George C. Wolfe.
Yeah.
Okay. Was a show called Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk, which does not, by the way, refer to my farts.
Okay.
Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk
Funny.
opens tonight and shows off the amazing skills of this tap dance kid.
I know him.
That's what I say. I think you know this
I
one.
don't know how to say the first name, but.
Well, anyway, can you name this performer? Okay, so I'll say it one more time. George C. Wolfe directed this new Broadway show, which opened in 1996 on this day, April 25th. The show is called Bring in the Noise, Bring in the Funk, and it showed off someone who had already been on Broadway, the tap dance kid himself. Can you name him, Joyce and everybody else?
I can. It's Savion Glover, right?
Well done, and well done all of you at home who, just for participating, you get kudos just for participating in our Dave's Gone By quiz. It was Savion, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, Savion Glover, who was in Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk, and he had made his name a few years earlier as a kid in the Tap Dance Kid. Oh, we seem to have, that's excellent. We have two participants. Let's see.
Oh, your friend, yeah.
Now, we're going to play some music by the man who's going to be joining us momentarily in the neighborhood. His name is Jeffrey Lewis. Hello. I'm wondering, are you seeing him already? Or because do I need to have him join the thing? Or is it automatic? Gallery view. Yeah, it's, I guess. Hold on there, because we're going to play a song of yours.
Now he's on there first. He's drinking some tea.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
So he was automatically. I didn't have to let him in.
He's drinking some cocoa or something.
Well, Jeffrey Lewis, first of all, it's wonderful to have you with us in the neighborhood. You're not going to be talking to me. You'll be talking to the great Rabbi Sol Solomon. And it's going to be in a minute or two, because I got to bring him into the room. So until then, we're going to play a bit of a song of yours, which is, you know, certainly very, very appropriate in these times. We're going to keep it chill in the Eastville.
It's a real bad time to take a trip to China or a road that leads to Rome. But what's the hurry? Because all that worry is coming right here to our home. And now it came ashore, and now it's at our door. It's coming for us downtrodden masses. And if you're short of breath, it's that old Black Death getting medieval on our modern asses. And the human race is getting put in place. I probably caught a case. I think I touched my face. I'm crying, holy jeez, won't you spare us, please? This beastie boy's not licensed to ill. But for now, I've just got to chill. Stay alive indoors for one day more and keep it chill in the Eastville. Keep it chill in the Eastville. Well, times were tough, but we had enough, and my friends mostly got by. But can't no one hire us, because there's a virus, so now we'll go broke or die. And I've heard some say what's on the way is a civilized collapse. And you can keep pretending it can keep on bending, but there's an ending when it snaps. And then the teeming hordes that can't take no more is gonna loot the stores, and then they're coming in for us, and we can't leave town because we're all locked down, and there's blood that's gonna spill. But for now, I've just got to chill. Stay alive indoors for one day more, and keep it chill in the Eastville. Keep it chill in the Eastville.
Oh, we are keeping it chill and downright chilly, ladies and gentlemen, in the East Bill, because we are delighted to be talking with an indie musician and a very, very talented one, as you've already heard right now, here in the neighborhood. I, by the way, am Rabbi Sol Solomon, the founder and spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. So I know a bit about New Yorkers, and I know this is a dyed-in-the-wool Lower East Side Jewy kind of a guy. Mazel McGlick. His name is Jeffrey Lewis. Let me tell you a little bit about this man while he continues to wait for us to get to him. He is what they dubbed, he doesn't necessarily dub himself this, but he's an anti-folky. And if you listen to him, it feels like you're almost mashing up Leonard Cohen, Art Paul Schlosser, James Kacholka, and the Velvet Underground's third album, somehow all in one person. He is also a cartoonist and a comic artist. He's had albums on Rough Trade Records, for example. It's the ones who cracked that the light shines through, the Leonard Cohen reference there. 12 Crass songs, where he covers songs by a band named Crass. And his most recent record came out last year called Bad Wiring with his band The Voltage. Listen to some of the people that he's either opened for or played with. Kimya Dawson of the Moldy Peaches, Pete Stample of Fugs era stuff, Devendra Banhart, Beth Orton, Thurston Moore. Song titles by this man include Sal's Pizza has sold out to the yuppie scum. I feel you on that. You don't have to be a scientist to do experiments on your own heart. What a wonderful title there. And the last time I did acid, I went insane. Ladies and gentlemen, I am insane with delight to be talking to Jeffrey Lewis. Shalom, Jeffrey.
Shalom. That's the best introduction I've ever had.
Well, thank you. It's all downhill from here. But I'm glad that you like the introduction. Welcome. And how are you? How are you feeling?
Feeling all right. It's a beautiful sunny day. The birds are chirping. And does it seem to you like the birds are chirping more this year because people aren't bothering them or something? I feel like I'm hearing more chirping than ever.
Not only more chirping, but this is the truth. At 4 o'clock in the fucking morning, when I'm trying to get my beauty sleep, because look how droopy my pants are, it's because the birds are starting. It's not even light out. They're not chirping for the sun. They're chirping, who knows? They're chirping because they're not getting the Netflix that they want. What is it? It's true. But this is true about the people are seeing more wildlife in other cities and suburbs. The deer are poking their heads where they didn't used to, just because people are slipping. So are they keeping you awake, or are you happy to hear them?
No, I'm usually a pretty heavy sleeper if I'm asleep, but it does seem like, outside my window, and now the trees are all blossoming and blooming, and the birds are just having a party out there. So that's very nice to hear.
Yeah. I mean, you are the author of one of my favorite songs of yours is Bugs and Flowers. I love that song. And so are you a really nature kind of person?
I'm definitely like a city kid, but I end up my parents, my father and my mom were kind of back to the land hippies there was a time in the 60s when a lot of Lower East Side hippies were moving to places like Maine, and the land was very cheap up there. So a lot of my parents' friends, including my mom and dad, got land in Maine in the 60s when it was just dirt cheap. So although these other people ended up moving up there from the city, my mom never wanted to leave the Lower East Side. So we stayed here in the city, but we always went up in the summer. So I have a lot, and it's very rural in the spot in Maine where my dad bought something like, quite a number of acres that he got for like $600, which was like almost nothing. They were just giving land away in the 60s practically. So,
do you still have that? Does your family still?
My dad.
Yeah,
my dad still has this piece of land up there, and there's just a little shack. There's no electricity. There's no running water. It's extremely rural. It's just up a dirt road. So I've spent a lot of time up there, and in that extremely opposite environment from New York City. I mean, that's where a lot of those songs have gotten written. I actually have a song about birds chirping and bugs and flowers, and a lot of, because there's it's such a wonderful environment to get work done, to write songs and to draw comic books, because there's just no distractions. There's no phone. There's nothing.
Well, what do you do at night, though? At 5 o'clock 5:30 in the evening, what do you do?
You go to sleep. Basically, you rise with the sun and you set with the sun. I've got a couple kerosene lamps up there, like it's like the 1800s. In the evening, I could light a couple kerosene lamps and write a letter to a friend on a. Every morning I go to the post office about a mile away, bicycle over to the post office. So anyway, that's where a lot of, even though I've basically lived my whole life in New York City, the rural environment that creeps into some of my songs is because I have spent quite a lot of time in the middle of nowhere in the woods in Maine.
Well, do you see yourself living in New York forever? Or yourself retiring to the little shack and maybe doing up the shack with a little bit of electricity or Wi-Fi or something, or not, or maybe moving to a suburb or Florida like Jews should. What do you see yourself?
Well, I am a captive of cheap rent, like some people are lucky enough to be. I'm in a beautiful golden cage that I can never leave because I have a rent situation that would be irreplaceable. So.
Are you controlled or stabilized?
It's a Mitchell-Lama co-op. The Mitchell-Lama co-op system, there's no landlord, so there's no profit motive. So everybody is just, paying the operating costs, which are a fraction of what most people in New York City are paying because there's no landlord leeching off of anything else. So you'd have to be on waiting. You have to be on a waiting list for a long time to get into these apartments. But once I was in,
you're never going to give it up. You're never right.
Yeah.
Well, did you have a baby with your girlfriend? Are you married? I don't know your current situation there.
Oh well, that's a whole funny long story in itself. But
Please,
yes. It's complicated. We
okay.
Well, we were together, and then we were apart, and then we were together, and then we were apart, and then. I figured when the whole virus lockdown thing happened, I asked her to move back in here so we could be together during lockdown. So then she moved back in. So then we were like really together, stuck together in the apartment. But then she got tired of that and moved back out. But now she's come back down to visit. I
hear her at the sink right now. Is that her?
Yeah, she's visiting for the weekend. So I'm not so. I don't know about this. I kind of like the idea of just being locked down and avoiding the outside world. And she's a little more, she's taking it seriously too, but she's a little bit looser than I am in terms of feeling okay about going out and, coming downtown and visiting me for the weekend and going back to her place.
Does she go on the subway? I mean, what is she?
Bicycle.
Pardon me. I'm in the midst of drinking a beautiful egg cream.
Just me.
Yeah.
I've got my morning smoothie over here too. That's
it's too healthy. What do you have in that thing?
Oh man, what don't I have in this thing? I love experimenting. I throw different stuff in the blender all the time and just see what happens. This has blueberries, strawberries, spinach, peanut butter, dates, yogurt, cherry juice. It's like being Frankenstein. It's a great joy to own a blender. You can keep throwing things in there. And
listen, look at that acai shit. What is that? What is acai berry? Where did that come from?
It's something they invented recently. I don't know. It's some modern.
Michael Jackson's go-go juice. I don't trust it. I seriously don't. Anyway, but this is the stuff. This is an egg. You live on the Lower East Side. Oh, thank you, darling. This is
the mysterious hand coming down from. That's great.
This is my helper, my keeper, my handler here. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, helper, keeper, handler. I should pay you more.
What are people watching us? Are people seeing us?
Nobody's watching this. No, we're on live on the Dave's Gone By Facebook, your podcast, your program of the stream. Oh, I got schmutz on my talus now. This is bad. Anyway, we're on live on Facebook. So yes, there are actual people, as far as I can tell, who are except we've had technical difficulties, of course. So we may have lost all the people, but this will be recorded, God willing, and then it will be available for all eternity. Which is
great. Well, I just didn't know if we were only being heard, if this was strictly audio, or people are seeing us too.
Yeah, God willing, people are actually seeing this beautiful face of mine right here, and your good-looking face.
Well, thank you. I didn't see my makeup. No, here's an interesting thing about the virus lockdown. I'm sure somebody has already explored this. When in history has it ever happened that all of New York City nobody gets a haircut. Nobody's been able to see a barber. I mean, my girlfriend Rebecca gave me this nice haircut.
Yeah.
So but
But you have my hair. Trust me. I know the
yeah,
feeling. Yeah.
few left up here, but the whole barber and hairstyling industry is shut down. So I'm sure there's a lot of people in New York City who are very fashion conscious, who are maybe never in their life have they gone 2 months without getting a real haircut, what they would consider a real haircut from a professional. Everybody's going to have these homemade funky haircuts, and that's citywide. That'll be very interesting.
Wait till you see all the old Jewish women. My God, the ones who go to the beauty parlor every 2 weeks and they haven't been there. Oh my God, they're all going to look like I don't know, like maybe they all end up looking like Esther Roll after a little while. It's a possibility.
It's a good science experiment, rules. That's one thing we're going to see what happens.
So, how are you? Oh, sorry. Please.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite egg cream? Are you partial to one in the neighborhood? Are you like a Ray's versus Gem Spa versus? Well, you have your homemade. Maybe the homemade is best of all.
No, the homemade. If you make it with, I mean, this is just chocolate with a little bit of U-bet and the things, but no. If you make it with borscht and sour cream and just a drop, just like a little piece of herring. Oh my God, is that good? Oh, and it stays with you all day. You don't get rid of that.
Sounds hearty. I honestly, I've been missing, many things I've been missing, but if reality ever returns, a trip to Russ and Daughters would be high on my list. Because herring, I haven't seen a piece of herring in quite some time now. So
please, this ear is not very good on me, so I'm hard of herring. Damn it. I'm sorry about that. But it's comedy. That's the kind of comedy I do. But speaking of missing things on the Lower East Side, do you miss the place called Sidewalk, New York, which is where a lot of the anti-folk people did their thing and became something of a, you should pardon the expression, a movement, which I had before we started the show?
Well, I certainly missed that place. That was my musical home stomping grounds. I mean, I would not have been playing music at all if that place didn't exist, because it was just, open for anybody to walk in and play. And I would have been far too timid to ever try to get booked at an actual club. But Sidewalk was just very welcoming on the Monday night open mic. And it was just full of, weirdos and people of all stripes, all ages, all levels of amateurism. So I just, and it was always free to get in every night of the week. So even before I was making music, I would just go there because I was just broke and had nothing else to do. And it was just always an interesting place to go sit and hear some weird music, or you never knew what you were going to get. Sometimes terrible, sometimes wonderful. And I would always bring my sketchbook, and it was just a nice way to spend time. I would just sit there and sketch the artists, all the performers on the stage. And then, when I started making up my own songs and I started playing them at Sidewalk, and then I started getting offered gigs at Sidewalk. Well, would you like to do a set at 7:30 p.m. next, on Wednesday? So I sort of slowly became part of the Sidewalk music scene. And it was like that for about 20 years, even though my own music developed into a whole career of going on tour and having a band and being on record labels and turning into this whole other thing. I never left the Sidewalk scene. If I was home in New York City, I always loved going back to the open mic there. Friends of mine would be playing Sidewalk. I still tried to play there at least once or twice a year. It was just a fantastic neighborhood resource. And it's in some ways irreplaceable, but everything changes at the city. It's amazing that it lasted as long as it did. It was there for about 30 years.
Well, I haven't been to, for shame on me, I haven't been to the Lower East Side in a while. Is it gentrifying? Is that place going to be now replaced by a Starbucks or some giant hoity yuppie thing? Or is there still, can you go to places on the Lower East Side that feel like Veselka, that feel like they've been there since 1930 and aren't going to change?
Well, everything's gentrified, but that's kind of been everything was kind of gentrified it's been so long now that everything has gone through that transformation that it's hardly even worth griping about. It's kind of like, nowadays people complain that the gentrified yuppie business from 2011 just shut down. I remember the old days when you go to, So that's just the nature of cities, the nature of things in general, that constant morphing. But yeah, there's still, you can still go to a number of spots which could disappear at any given time, but there's certain landmarks that are still around. Veselka, as you mentioned, that's the block I grew up on, actually.
Oh, wow.
On East 9th Street. And, B&H is still there. And
Wait, B&H, the photo place? They're up on.
Oh, no, not the other the food B&H. I don't know if it has any relation to the photo place, but there's a little kind of
B&H standing for Bezras Hashem, I'll bet. Or maybe not.
That's a good guess, but it's kind of like the little brother, small, cheaper version of Veselka down the street there. That's also been, it's another place where you can get pierogies in the neighborhood. And there's a bunch of places that are still there. St. Mark's Comics closed down last year. Also, that was the comic book store that had been there since I was a kid. But things close, things open, things change. That's the nature of things.
Can I ask you how much of your time and how you devote your schedule, since you are both? You really have to do little. Like a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to Ben. Oh my God, I'm forgetting the name. Who was the cartoonist? Ben Catcher was on the program. He just has to concentrate on drawing and doing the books, the strips. You're a musician and comic book guy. How much of each do you do? A week of one and then go another week of another, or part of the day one, part of the day another? How does it work?
Well, Ben Catcher is fantastic. That guy's work, I love his work. But it's true, he doesn't have to make comics and make music and go on tours. It's very difficult.
Dinner's ready. Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting ready for breakfast over here. But the scheduling, my own ability to discipline my schedule, it's all just chaos, and I'm in a constant state of swirling anxiety, like, oh my God, I haven't worked on this project, and it's been months since I touched that project, and wait a minute, but I need to work on booking this tour, but I also need to work on getting my new comic book out, and it's just a swirling madness that goes on. I've during this virus lockdown, I've created a very good system for myself, which I hope continues. And I've written down about 16, I don't know if you can see this on the screen there. I've written about 16 categories of things that I would like to get done, things that I would like to accomplish.
Wow.
And so in these categories, there's a coloring, there's a 4-page comic of mine that I'm trying to do in full color. So one of them is coloring that. Another category is working on my new comic. Another category is gig booking, rescheduling all my band's tour dates for May. I have to try to reschedule them for later in the year.
Can I ask you before? Yeah, stop you there. What are the target dates that you're figuring? Because there's no point in picking a date and then it's going to be in sand and you have to erase it. So what are you thinking about?
Well, I just didn't know what else to do. You're very correct there that there's just no predicting. So I'm currently moving all of my spring tour dates to October.
Sure.
And that might be over optimistic, or it might not be. I don't know. I've made a rule for myself that I don't like being on the road with my band in the dead of winter, just because driving in snow is very stressful.
Yeah.
So I try to not be on the road during, say, December, January, February. So if I'm going to do any touring in the 2020 year, it's going to have to be in October, November time. So I figured I would at least try. I'll plan for the future just in case there is a future. And then if there isn't, then I'll cross that bridge.
We're all dead. Where it's not going to be no. So when you tour with the band is was it Low Voltage? Is the band's name?
Yeah, currently.
Right. So do you get like an RV? Do you all go in separate cars? Do you just rent like a Hertz U-Haul thing? How do you travel if you're going like a Northeast tour or something like that?
Well, my method in the last few years has been to rent some kind of like SUV minivan size thing. I bought my drummer this very small drum kit. It's what they call a nesting kit, where each piece, it's like a Russian doll, where each piece of the drum kit fits into the other pieces. So
cool.
We don't need an entire van. And we're just a 3-piece band. So we have a little guitar amp, a bass amp, and the nesting drum kit. plus whatever, mostly what ends up getting packed is all the merchandise for a tour, because I'm bringing all my comic books, vinyl records, CDs, T-shirts. So figuring out the merchandise and how much to bring is always one of the complicated parts of organizing a tour. But yeah, it's the three of us. It's myself, Brent Cole on drums, and Mem Paul on bass. That's been the lineup for about 5 years now. And renting a vehicle in New York City is very expensive. So I've discovered that you can find much cheaper rental deals a little bit out on the perimeters. So sometimes that means going out to Newark Airport or Jersey City, sometimes LaGuardia Airport, because if I was trying to pick up a rental vehicle from, right in Manhattan or Brooklyn, they tend to be much pricier. So the first day of any tour is usually, I got to wake up, maybe 7 a.m., drag myself all the way out to one of these airports, pick up the vehicle, drive back down to the city, pick up everybody, pick up all the gear, and then we hit the road.
But touring, especially if you sell the merch and you sell it makes a living for you. You're able to do it. You don't just come out sort of even. You make a little dough that you can live on, even though there's no big record company that's signing your life away in blood to help you do this. Yes?
Well, strange as it may seem, for somebody who most people would look at me and be like, well, this guy can't sing and he can't play, but I've had a successful music career for 20 years, for my entire adult life. I've had no other job other than making my songs and doing the artwork and the comic books. But I was very inspired. There was a book that came out around 2001, 2002 called Our Band Could Be Your Life. And that was right around the time when my first official album came out on Rough Trade. I'd been recording homemade cassettes for starting around 1998. But in the year 2000, I was, quote, discovered by Rough Trade Records. And when they put out my first official album, I first started going on tour. And this book, Our Band Could Be Your Life, by the author is Michael Azarad.
Sounds familiar. What band was it about?
Well, each chapter is about a different band through the 80s. All these independent rock bands like Sonic Youth and the Meat Puppets and Beat Happening and Dinosaur Jr. and Black Flag. And each chapter sort of details how these different bands created their own careers without the help of a major record label. They started booking their own gigs, figuring out how to go on tour, and often releasing their own albums. And it was so inspiring to me hearing all these stories of these bands that have become very successful, well-known rock bands, really just were able to get in there and learn how to do all these things themselves. So that book came out at just the right time for me when I was just starting to figure out how to do that stuff. So I kind of just never stopped. I just got in there, and honestly, a lot of musicians complain about the internet, but the internet was extremely helpful for me to be able to book shows, organize tours, book flights, just put together all the things. I can't imagine how bands used to do that in the 70s and 80s when it was just phone calls and postcards.
And zines. They would just mimeograph zines, and that's how it would go to fandom, but not much beyond. And now it's just like, Spotify, or your place of choice to post things. And anybody remember MySpace? Remember that? Yeah, right.
Yeah, before that, there was a thing. I remember mp3.com was a website that a lot of musicians were very excited about in like 2000, 2001, because people would pay to get the MP3s of your music. And it was like, this site was going to be the future. mp3.com was, it's
almost in a way it was the future. It just didn't make a living as the future. But then, Apple stepped in and they found another way to do it.
Well, we're going to start complaining about how the neighborhood of the internet has been gentrified. Oh, remember MySpace? That was so great. And then they closed down, and now we just have Facebook, and it's all getting gentrified and ruined. But
oh, please remember, I used to type on a computer and it was just black and green letters. Oh, I missed that so much. It was love. That's all you needed. Black with a little bit of green and a cursor going boop, 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 boop. That was beautiful. Let me ask you, we're talking about artists who who got known even before they got any kind of a label, were doing their own homemade music and homemade cassettes. at one point, did you ever play with or on a bill with or know Daniel Johnston?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he is my major inspiration. I was just a comic book artist all my life since I was a little kid. I was always drawing and making comics, and that was all I wanted to do with my life. And then, when I got out of college in 1997, I started making up songs and recording tapes of my songs completely 100% due to the fact that I heard Daniel Johnston's music. And it was just such a mind-blowing, life-changing experience for me. That kind of expression, that kind of artistic expression through making up songs, it was a complete transformation of what I thought. I never experienced music like that. And his songs were so powerful and so direct. And that was just my whole vision of what I would do. I wanted to make up songs, record them to tapes, and if the songs were good enough, if people liked them, they would just sort of develop legs of their own, and people would copy the tapes. And that was. But I did get to play. I played with him a number of times over the years. The first time I played a show with Daniel Johnston was in 1999 at Sidewalk, actually.
Wow.
He came to New York and played at Sidewalk, and he hadn't played live in about 10 years at that point. He was kind of just re-emerging as a live performer. And I was, of course, very excited to be able to play a show with him. And I played with him a number of times in Austin, Texas, in various circumstances.
Was he normal? Were you able to communicate with him in a normal fashion, or was he?
No, you really couldn't have a regular conversation with him. He was very sort of closed off to, he would never look you in the eye. You could have a little chit chat maybe, but he didn't really engage or wasn't that interested in, he was very withdrawn inside himself and very shy, and, would never really just look you in the face and have a conversation. But we did we went to a comic book store together in England. We did a few shows together in England at one point, and went to a comic store together. And so I had a few different experiences and interactions with him. And his brother Dick, who was his manager and handler for a number of years, he was much, you could hang out and have a conversation with him, and that's kind of like who I would be talking to.
You figure the brother would be the more difficult type because he's saddled with the name Dick Johnston. I mean, he must have taken so much crap in school, I gotta tell you. But it turns out he's the normal-ish one. Speaking of normalcy, let me ask you something. You comic book guy, indie music artist, and a lot of your earlier songs are all about sort of being New Yorky. You don't mention Jewishness or anything, but there's a nerdy kind of insular aspect. You don't have good luck with girls. You let opportunities go by, and it's sort of self-deprecating stuff. But here you are, as you say, a successful musical artist for the past 20 years and a comic book artist. You got an on-again, off-again girlfriend who's now with you. Is domesticity, can you still write the kinds of songs about life and being a schlemiel and a sad sack when you really aren't and haven't been for a very, very long time?
Well, it's definitely the case that as a writer or an artist goes through life, your position in the universe shifts, so you're writing from a different perspective. And I think the key to that is to continually push forward, and the key to creating from a place of authenticity and exuberance, and where you're kind of surfing on the crest of your own, the edge of your experience, and where the emotions are really powerful for you, you have to constantly let go of what you've made before and fearlessly dive forward into what does the Jeffrey Lewis of today feel strongly about, and is it not necessarily what a 25-year-old Jeffrey felt strongly about, or a 30-year-old Jeffrey? I'm 44 now, and my life and my perspective on things. Everybody has their sort of intensive core of where, what they feel most powerfully about. And that's kind of, as an artist, you're it's almost like just like dowsing with a little dowsing stick. You're walking around trying to find where are the vibrations? Like, what am I scared to talk about? What feels most powerful to me? What do I feel the most, exhilarated about? And those things shift over time. But as a musician, you're in the odd position of having to exist as a live performer, where on stage you become a fourth dimensional time crystal of yourself. On stage, you're operating in a different dimension where I'm playing songs, new songs, songs from last year, songs from 5 years ago, songs from 10 years ago. And on stage, you become a representation of all the versions of you that you have ever been. So rather than being a three-dimensional self in the current day, the on-stage version of you, you realize occupies a fourth dimensional Jeffrey Lewis in all capital letters. All Jeffreys who have ever been and will ever be are in this other dimensional phase, which is why I think that it's a mistake for artists. I think it's a mistake for artists who only play old material. It's a mistake for artists who only play new material. I think the greatest thing is if you go see somebody like, Lou Reed, you can't see anymore because he's gone.
I don't want to see Lou Reed right now. It would be kind of horrible.
But, say Bob Dylan or somebody who's had a very long career, you don't want to just see,
Certainly don't want to see Bob Dylan doing the American Songbook. That's the last thing you want to see, yeah. But right.
I don't want to just see him play songs that he wrote in 1965. That's a little three-dimensional slice of that's one moment of Bob Dylan. But I also don't want to just see him play songs that he wrote this week. I want to see the fourth dimensional, complete, time.
When God was writing the Bible and Moses was bringing it down, Moses said, look, I can bring down Genesis, but I want to see a little bit of Deuteronomy too. Genesis is better and Exodus has the best stories, but I'll take the book of Ruth. Also, that's recent. That's pretty good, God. You want to see the whole panoply, if you will. Yeah. And you don't have to be like Bruce Springsteen deals with this thing. So he can't be a 20-year-old kid from New Jersey singing on the hood of a Dodge anymore. So he turns himself into an Okie who's a mass murderer and a farmer. And that's his way of being authentic of what he cares about. Yours is figuring out who you are right now as a 42-year-old man?
44.
44, oh, well, mazel.
The internet takes off 2 years. The live stream always adds 10 pounds, removes 2 years. But like novelists, somebody like Philip Roth or somebody who just writes novels for decades, there's, you're constantly create new things. Just keep your nose to the grindstone and keep working at finding new artistic expressions. It's a never-ending challenge, and that's kind of what's engaging about it.
Can you, at one point you told a website called flaunt.com that it's hard for you to enjoy yourself. Are you anhedonic or are you just Jewish?
Well, maybe it's just Jewish. I don't know. You know what? I've discovered during this virus lockdown that I really enjoy keeping to my productive schedule. Like I was showing you my list of things to do. I set an hour time. What I do is I set a timer for an hour and I do 1 hour on each task. And then I put a little check mark next to it. And it's just been a wonderful way to spend time, just being indoors, doing 1 hour of working on my website, 1 hour of songwriting, 1 hour of working on my comic, 1 hour of coloring my other comic, 1 hour of, I'm doing a project about the history of Chile. So I'm 1 hour of research about that. So, just having that kind of system really appeals to me. I think it sort of makes me very happy when I look back at my little list of things and they each have little check marks next to them. And of course, listening to music makes me very happy. So, listening to records all day long, I just put music on all day long, and that's
now. One of your songs on your recent, we can still call it a new album, even though it was from 2019. But the album that you put out last year with the band The Voltage, Bad Wiring, one of those songs is about is a wonderful, funny song about LPs. And did you give them all away? And the fun part of the song is that you switch to CDs in the last verse. But do you listen on vinyl still, or do you listen now exclusively to CDs, or are you just on iTunes like the rest of us?
I listen to a huge amount of everything. Any given day, I'm probably listening to music like 12 hours a day or something. And that sometimes that's records. I have my whole vinyl collection here. I'm still buying records, but like I say in the song, it's increasingly difficult to find records for cheap because they're such heavy duty collector's items now. Plus I have most of the records that I want, but then CDs, especially when I'm on tour and if I find music stores that have used CD sections, you just find these incredible bargains for just a few bucks. So many great albums on CD. So, I have colossal amounts of CDs that I listen to, and that is quite fun because I have a 5-disc CD changer. So I love just putting in 5 CDs, and then I can just get all this work done while 5 albums worth of music just comes at me. And then
I want some specifics here since you're a music guy. Off the top of your head, what is like the last time that you did that where what were the CDs in your changer? What were the 5 CDs that you put in there for a day's worth of work,
I can show you right now. I'll walk over to the stereo and see what's stacked up over here.
Oh, that's your girlfriend. Shalom. Hello.
Well, yeah, I'll probably wrap up this interview shortly and move on to the breakfast phase of my day. So I've listened to the first Michael Hurley album.
My gosh, yes.
So that's a great record, Michael Hurley. There's a record called, I just listened to this. This was in my CD changer yesterday. Lavender Country it's a gay country record from the 70s. It was very ahead of its time. Wow. It's still pretty jaw-dropping. It's very bold.
Quite literally, if you think about it.
Album. Yeah. And a Screamin' Jay Hawkins compilation.
Oh, yeah.
And you can see, this was purchased for $2.99. Like these CDs I got for dirt cheap. A Husker Du album, like
Candy Apple Gray, a classic.
Indie stuff. Bauhaus, some sort of goth punk British stuff. And I listened to quite a lot of like obscure psychedelic folk stuff. Here's an album called Stained Glass Window. This one it's not spectacular, but it's, it looked like an interesting reissue. And I found that used at a CD store in France on my last tour. So just things like that. Here's a free jazz record by the Henry Grimes Trio that actually my cousin Perry Robinson played clarinet on this record. It's a 1965 free jazz thing. Santana, I just listened to Santana's Abraxas, classic rock album. Some Ray Charles. Current 93. Now I'm a big fan of this band, Current 93. Very strange, creepy, almost disturbing sort of psychedelic folk band from the 80s and 90s and into the current era. There's quite a lot of albums by this band, Current 93, and they almost never perform in New York City. And I had tickets to see them last night, which I bought months ago, and of course the gig didn't happen, and that was very disappointing. But I figured I would at least do some throw some Current 93 in the CD player and really, just immerse. Since I couldn't see them live, I could at least immerse myself in some recordings for a while.
Which is actually, it leads to another question of what current band, that band is called Current 93, but what current musicians do you listen to? Because so much of your LP and CD collection is stuff from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 90s. Who do you listen to? Any top 40 or any alternative bands or anti-folk people who are right here and now doing new music?
Very little, almost nothing. One band that I'm a huge fan of that to me is a modern band is Tango, who I've been seeing, I've been attending their concerts regularly for like 20 years, but they've been around, 35 years. That's not even so modern. I've got every Tango record, and they always do their 8 nights of Hanukkah concerts every year. They play every night, and they, so I always try to see them a couple of times at least during their annual Hanukkah series. They're one of my all-time favorite bands, but they're not like a new band, but they're not Jimi Hendrix. They're relatively modern. I don't know what counts as modern, but I don't listen to very much.
A band that started maybe within the last 10 years and is still, and that maybe we haven't heard of, that you can turn us on to, as it were.
No, I'm not the. You know who you would need to ask is my bass player Mem, who is like 24 years old, and I'm 44. So Mem keeps us plugged into the modern stuff. Well, the one way that I often get introduced to modern bands is if I end up going on tour with them. Like sometimes my band will get asked, some famous modern band that I might not have heard of. It might be doing a tour and they're looking for an opening act. So in that way, I've been introduced to some modern stuff. But yeah, most of what I listen to is, older stuff. I quite
All right,
often.
let me throw this back at you then. If, let's say you were doing this COVID isolation thing, not in your apartment, but on a desert island, what is the one album or CD or 78 that you would take with you?
Well, I usually answer that question by saying that I would like to. I know very little about classical music, and I think if I was going to be stuck on some desert island, that might be a good time for me to learn, something very dense, something that could really stand up to repeated, infinite listens and still pick out new details. Something that I've actually never heard before, so that I would be less likely to get tired of it. So my desert island pick would be some kind of long, complicated classical music piece that I would have to learn how to appreciate.
Everything else would be bringing Exile on Main Street. You'll be bringing Stockhausen. Kind of interesting. We're talking, and we just have a little more time left here with Jeffrey Lewis. I would ordinarily go and say, oh, go see him playing at, or go see him on tour. At the moment, we can't do that, but we can direct you to his website, which is thejeffreylewissite.com. Because he's the Jeffrey Lewis. The Jeffrey, spelled the usual way, Lewis, spelled the Jerry Lewis way, Lewis, thejeffreylewissite.com. It's a place where you can purchase his merch, purchase a lot of his old albums, even the ones on Rough Trade and sort of the independent ones. Can they purchase your comic art and your books there too?
Yeah, everything's on the website. There's a lot of artwork. There's my comic books, including my brand new issue. Fuff Comics issue number 12 was a giant size issue that I just put out a couple months ago. And I'm currently, various projects. I'm working on a brand new website. My website has been in need of updating for a long time. So the new website is going to launch pretty soon. That's one of my categories that I try to spend an hour every day working on. But yeah, there's stuff. I mean, just Google me. It's funny, in the old days, you used to do an interview and you would say, yes, you can check me out online at http://www.thejeffreylewissite.com. Nowadays, I don't even bother putting my website on stuff. It's kind of like if people want to find me, they just start typing in Jeffrey Lewis and stuff just comes up. So it's kind of.
Yeah, I do. If people want to find me, I just say Google Jewish asshole, and I'm up usually within the first 5 search results. It's amazing.
Yeah, you want to be high up in the search results. It's very important.
What is the weirdest or funnest or most profound experience or two that you've had as a musician or touring or meeting idols or things like that? What's like a moment that you will never forget because it was so weird or funny or great?
Oh man, there have been so many of them. It's very hard to boil down to my top mental Google search. What's my top mental Google search when I get asked that question? Doing those shows with Daniel Johnston, that was really big for me. Anytime I got to encounter one of my artistic idols, or even better, actually get to work with and collaborate with, working with Peter Stamfel of the Holy Modal Rounders and the Fugs, and the tours that I did with Peter and the albums that I made with him were just incredible experiences that I couldn't have predicted when I was just, in the old days buying Holy Modal Rounders records and Fugs records, and getting to know Thule Kupferberg and working on projects with Thule when he was alive. And touring, I've gotten to open for a lot of my favorite bands. There's The Fall. The Fall was one of my all-time favorite bands, and I got to open for The Fall in London in 2004. Rocky Erickson, who's a guy who I'm a huge fan of. I got to do a show opening for him. I think that was 2009. So yeah, these kinds of experiences that I would never have predicted when I was just, at home drawing comic books. Like I would never have. I got to do tour. My band did 2 tours in China.
Oh my gosh.
So all kinds of, I have these. I have the series I've been working on the history of communism. I have these songs that I sing where I have accompanying illustrations, and I have about 10 of them in this series. I have a history of communism in Vietnam. I have a song where I'm showing illustrations while I'm singing, and I have one about the history of
China.
Korea.
Yeah.
I have one about the history of Cuba. I've gone to perform a lot of these in the actual locations. I got to do my history of communism in China.
Now, hold on.
Yeah.
I have to ask you. You went to China. You performed in China. Did they tell you what you could and couldn't do? Did you have any kind of overlords seeing over you of the government or of officials or commissioners or anything like that? Could you just go wherever you pleased? What was it like to go there?
It was complicated. There was a certain amount of paperwork involved, and you had to submit all of the song. You had to give a list of songs that you were going to perform and submit the lyrics. But I have so many songs that, and we usually play different stuff on stage every night. So the set that I submitted was, just some kind of selection of songs. But I don't think they actually had official people checking. I don't think people are actually going to the shows and seeing the lyrics. But we've also performed in Vietnam, and I've just gotten to play in places that I just never would have imagined that would ever happen, including all sorts of weird corners of the United States. From the big cities to small places. I think I've played in every state. I've never Hawaii. I'm still lacking Hawaii. I would like to add that
Vietnam and China, but Hawaii you haven't made it to. That's interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Did a tour of Alaska once. That was really cool and interesting. Well, anyway, I should wrap this up. You got to get back to your egg cream, and I got to get back to my coffee over here.
Yeah. It has been absolutely delightful talking with Jeffrey Lewis, the Jeffrey Lewis, here in the neighborhood on Dave's Gone By. It just remains for me to wish you and your girlfriend and your friends and all your circle of people and your musicians in the Voltage good health, continue good health and making it through this crisis, and continue good comics and good music to you, Jeffrey Lewis. Thank you so much for being with us in the neighborhood.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a real pleasure, and hopefully see you soon.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Shalom to you. Okay. How do I get rid of, no offense, but I'm going to get rid of you. Bye. Shalom. Oh, there we go.
Don't get rid of don't close the meeting.
He left. No, he's good. We're good. Shalom, everybody. Rabbi Sol here on Dave's Gone By. Rabbi Sol with a potato here. Don't know why. Oh, again with the potato bombing. This is what they're doing with the Zoom these days. But thank you for allowing us to do this interview. Remember, it's the Jeffrey Lewis site.com is the place to go. Listen to his music, buy his merch. I can play maybe just a moment or two of his music before I get thrown off Facebook here, and bring Dave back into the neighborhood to continue this episode of Dave's Gone By. Everybody out there, please do stay healthy, stay well, and shalom to you.
Out in the forest, out past the stone wall, built by old farmers or older guys, I saw
Just a little tiny bit of bugs and flowers there, so that Facebook doesn't throw us off. Dave Lefkowitz here, continuing the Dave's Gone By Facebookio Podcastio Programmio of the stream here on this April 25th, 2020. So good to have our guest Jeffrey Lewis in with us, talking to Rabbi Sol Solomon. Let me get centered there. That's better. I have my darling and wonderful wife Joyce in the room with us too, and of course Potato. This potato was a good potato. He did not Zoom bomb at the end of that interview. Shame on you, Potato, for doing that. But certainly no shame at all in having very talented and delightful guests like Jeffrey Lewis with us on the program. Well, what else do we have on this program on this April 25th, 2020. Dave's Gone By. We're here from 9 until noon or thereabouts Eastern Time every Saturday morning. This is our 743rd episode of the show, if you can believe it. Remember that we've got all our old shows, 99% of them, archived at davesgoneby.com. DAVESGONEBY. davesgoneby.com. And what's great is, yeah, the last 2 years or so have been video, and those have been saved. We've also got our many, many years of shows where we were just on radio, whether it was college radio or terrestrial radio or mere podcasts for a while. Those are all there. They're all free. They're streamable or downloadable. So whether you want to put them, listen to them as if they were a podcast, or just stream them on your computer if you don't want to download anything, they're all there. And there's even a separate archive that we're going to be going through of just the interviews that we've done on the show, because we've had a lot of musicians on the program, not just the marvelous Jeffrey Lewis, but we've had people like Loudon Wainwright III and Judy Collins and Christine Lavin and Sophie B. Hawkins have been on this show, and musicians that we've lost over the years too, like Oscar Brand. I mean, really, really great stuff. They're all there. Some of the links are a little broken. We're going to go through those as we have been with the full episodes, but go to davesgoneby.com for the whole schmear. You can also check us out at archive.org, archive.org. It's this marvelous, all-consuming website that's trying to put in the 20th and 21st century of all creative work that's being done. So whether it's books or whether it's radio shows or podcasts or TV shows, it's this nonprofit org that's been collecting everything. And so we've got about 4 years of our most recent shows up on archive.org, and we're trying to get some more on there as well. And if you're just like going to the gym or something and you only want to deal with podcasts, go to castbox.fm, and you can find our channel there too, the Dave's Gone By channel, castbox.fm. That's a great one, just where you can load up and listen right on your device. Not that you're going out to the gym or on an airplane at the moment or on a bus or train, but it's there for you to listen to Dave's Gone By as well. Anyway, we, as I said, have more to do on this program. For example, our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, our Wretched Pun of Destiny, and we did our quiz. Yay, so we got through that, but we haven't done Inside Broadway yet. Oh, I do believe it's time to. This is where I talk about something that I do love quite a lot. As much as I love music, I also love the theater a great deal, and there isn't a lot of theater to be had right now, at least not on actual physical stages. So there's always some Broadway news, though, and stuff to talk about, which is why we do Inside Broadway. Inside Broadway, a look at theater on and off Broadway and beyond, brought to you by Total Theater and Performing Arts Insider. Curtain going up.
A limerick is a comic verse of 5 lines, in which lines 1, 2, and 5 would end with words that rhyme. And likewise, verses 3 and 4 also end with words that rhyme. So this is a limerick.
Sorry about that. Go figure, I would have to take the longest pee in the universe when I had only 40 seconds on that recording. Oh, it's that kind of, it's one of those shows where everything goes wrong, except I think the interview was really, really right. Didn't that go great and no technical problems?
I learned about a 4th dimension when you're on stage, your past, present, and future.
Yeah, and I saw the 5th dimension on stage.
Keep the future in there. That was great.
Yeah, you don't want to see my future. It's going to involve Alzheimer's and cancer and tumors and things. Anyway.
How beautiful, honey.
Inside Broadway we go, ladies and gentlemen, on this Saturday, April 25th, 2020, with Broadway news, ladies and gentlemen. So here's the deal. What is the news about Broadway? Oh, yeah, nothing. Corona. We're on hiatus. The as we mentioned a week ago, the league finally picked another date for the soft opening, if you will, of Broadway. It's been on hold since March 11th, I think it was. Oh no, we're being bombed. Potato bomb! Zoom, zoom! Zoom, potato bomb! They're incorrigible. So stop encouraging them. Anyway, so what they did was up until recently, up until a week and a half ago, the league kept holding April 13th as the date that Broadway would reopen. They knew, no, everybody knew, no, that was not happening. Cuomo was shutting down New York for a month and a half. How could they keep that date? But they didn't want to pick another date that would be, they would have to erase and re-chalk over. They wanted to go far enough in the future of picking some kind of maybe reasonable date to start reopening Broadway theater. So they went for June 7th. But again, it's really not the reopening date probably for Broadway. It will serve as sort of a marker, kind of a guidepost. The thing is, what they're doing is Ticketmaster and Telecharge and the theaters themselves, when they have to refund money to all these tourists and people who bought tickets for shows between April 13th and June 6th, they've got to refund. They've got to get it back. The shows are not going to happen. That's the date up until they're giving money back, essentially. Doesn't mean that all the theaters are actually going to reopen on June 7th. It wouldn't shock me if we started seeing some off Broadway, some small theaters start to maybe reopen at that point. I'm talking like 40, 50, 60 seaters, if those still exist somewhere on the Lower East Side and those environs. It's much more likely, and Charlotte St. Martin has said this, we talked about this last week, she is the head and spokesperson for the Broadway League, saying, look, it's probably weeks away, even if Broadway reopens in late May. Governor Cuomo says it's safe to start rehearsing. It's safe to open certain aspects of the Broadway community. So the costume shop can reopen. Now, you don't get 1,400 people in the theater, but at least you can start working on the shows again. You can get cast together with maybe an intimacy coordinator to work on how far they've got to stay, reblock certain shows that are very physical and people together so that they'll get their spit flying. Even then, shows wouldn't actually start on June 7th. The real thinking is probably Labor Day. That nobody wants to say it out loud because it's so far away. And so many of the Broadway shows that are on hiatus or were just about to open or go into previews and then had to stop in mid-March, they're not going to be able to keep it together if they have to wait until August to get back up. But that may be the real thing. I'm thinking July 4th is a much better and a good compromise, assuming we keep the curve the way it is, assuming that the deaths are going down, the hospitalizations, and most importantly, the new incidences are going way down. And yeah, they may pop up again in October, but we can't really.
I want to say this with all
please.
respect. I'm glad that you're using incidence and prevalence correctly. Thank you.
Actually, I didn't say prevalence.
Incidence is new case, prevalence is old and new together. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Well, thank you. I did actually, believe me, I didn't do it knowingly.
I'm grateful for you.
Well, thank you. But that's the thing. It's about new cases. If our new cases keep going like this through the late spring into early summer, I do think that July 4th would be this perfect weekend time to start things. Certainly off Broadway and off Broadway. Whether the audiences all have to wear masks or spritz themselves, wash their hands before going in, and you're not allowed to use the restaurant. I don't know what they would have to do, but I don't think we should have to wait until September or October, or some people are even saying 2021.
Share a bathroom with
What?
anyone.
You don't necessarily. Maybe they would just have people lined up at a trough, and I don't know. What would be safer? I honestly don't know. Because that's the thing that we're talking about last week. It isn't just about the audiences being comfortable going into a theater and sitting so close to each other. It's about actors on stage. And if you're like me, or Rabbi Sol Solomon, the projectile, the phlegm, the spit, it's flying all over the stage.
There needs to be like the kind of capes and masks and.
Because I've sat in first and second and third rows, and I've seen actors, and you can't really help it. It's just a spray that goes up half the time, every sentence that they say. I'm not even that bad, but but it's true. Yeah. And then what about actors who have to kiss on stage? Or if you saw Slave Play on Broadway this past season, or The Inheritance, they were doing a lot more than kissing on stage. I mean, it was like, holy crap.
Sex?
Basically simulated sodomy and sex and everything.
Why you saw that show 75 times?
They had a guy getting pegged in Slave Play. This like woman jamming things into his tuchus on stage. I'm like,
that's not real though.
No, but she still has to. He's still on this thing. Naked, she's still. I'm like, oh, who wants to do that during COVID? I don't know. I mean, we did it last night, but I gave permission, and I used some tinfoil. So it didn't hurt as much. Anywho, so that is what Broadway is up against. And Charlotte St. Martin, the head of the league, says that unless there's some kind of miraculous testing or vaccinating going on, she really doesn't foresee any shows really going back on until September at the earliest, or 2021 is not inconceivable. So it's a pretty sucky situation. And it's also affecting touring. All these Broadway shows, the national tours that they're doing. So you might think, okay, well, wait a minute. Why not? Okay, so let's say Chicago, you gotta be really careful. Let's say Los Angeles, you gotta be really careful. But if they go back to Montana, they play the big theater there. These tours want to go to North Dakota, or places that are not COVID heavy and never were, and maybe will not be because they're not so dense. The problem is when you got a Broadway tour booked, it's not like it goes somewhere for a week and then everybody goes back home for 2 or 3 weeks and then they go back out. It's a tour schedule, and it might go from Montana, but then it's going to go into Colorado, which has a hot spot, and then so forth. So it's a lot that Broadway is working out and having to work out during COVID. So got some good news and some bad news about our next thing. The bad news is that the guy died. Good news is he didn't die of COVID. And the even better news is that he was 94 years old. He was Rene Bush, co-founder with Gilberto Zaldivar of Repertorio Español in New York, an off-Broadway theater that has been around, my gosh, since the theater company has been around since 1969, and they moved to their current home in 1972. So yeah, and it's in the Gramercy Arts Theater in the Gramercy district. I've been there several dozen times in my career as a theater critic and theater journalist. Very, very, they do so much with so little, if you will. They get a lot of funding. They get, I'm sure, grant funding and budgets, and they target their audience, of course. But still, they are a true off-Broadway house and repertory company. They were founded by Rene Bush and Gilberto Zaldivar to serve the Spanish community, much in the way back in the day that the Second Avenue theater scene served the Jewish community here, in doing plays that would either be in Yiddish or partly in Yiddish and English and Hebrew, and taking on themes and plays for that audience. That's exactly what Repertorio Español did. I used to make fun of them a little bit because every single show I saw there for a while was, okay, I am from Cuba, I'm from Ecuador, I'm from Colombia, now I'm in America. What does it mean to be how Ecuadorian, how American am I? It was always the same fucking plot, no matter who wrote the play and no matter what the play title was. And they weren't bad plays, but it was just like, oh, I know where this is going. But that's what they do. And they also do a lot of Marquez.
Large B.
¿Dónde?
Outside.
Oh, outside. Oh dear. Yeah, outside. As long as the bee is outside and I am here. Oh my goodness. I'm going to take a look at this bee. Let's see.
He needs a flight pattern.
Is he by that little? Oh my goodness, that's him.
Yes.
That's the bee who's starting the hive there.
No, I think that's a smaller one. That's not the queen. That's not the queen.
Well, who could that be? See, it's going to go into that crack right there. They're building a hive.
Of course
There's
they
going to be
are.
thousands of bees.
Of course they are.
Where Joyce is pointing to a window, that our window, and then right across the way, just a few feet away, is another house, and that house has like an opening on its side, just a little bit where what do they call this? The siding,
I don't know.
and then the
Bees.
sconce thing, and the bee is going in there, and there's always bees in there. Oh dear. Oh dear. If you see one or two bees buzzing around the same place over and over, you know there's a hive in there, and there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands of bees in it. So we're going to be real careful when opening this window this summer, I'll tell you. Anyway, so Rene Bush, farewell to him. He was a celebrated writer in Cuba, and then came to America and got his master's degree at the Yale Drama School, not too shabby. He did win a Drama Desk for his artistic achievement over the years, a Drama Desk Award, excuse me. And I didn't know, he was a book editor for Reader's Digest and head of Spanish creative copy for J. Walter Thompson, which is the kind of thing when you're trying to run a small theater company, you still have to make money and pour all your profit. Anything you make that isn't feeding you kind of has to go into the company to keep it alive. So yes, a very well-respected and important person in the Spanish theater community in New York. Farewell to Rene Bush, who passed away on April 19th at the age of 94. But as I said, natural causes. Yeah. Amazing we can give a thumbs up for death, right? But anyway, I give 2 big thumbs up for Performing Arts Insider, the Bible of Broadway. Since 1944, the journal Performing Arts Insider has served the Broadway and entertainment community. It is the place where you can turn, literally, you turn the pages of this hard copy magazine that tells you everything you need to know about every show on Broadway, off-Broadway, and off-Broadway too. Award ceremonies about the theater as well, and sometimes rumors about shows that are being planned for Broadway. It's this marvelous resource that theater owners use, that bookers for tours use, that people who book guests for TV talk shows and late night shows use, because this is the place. This is how you can find what's playing, what will be playing, how to contact all the actors and designers.
How are you doing it now, right?
What was that?
How are you doing it now?
Well, right now, because of what's been going on, we're still making the magazine. We had an April issue, and just yesterday we put out the May issue of Performing Arts Insider. We're emailing it as a PDF file to our subscribers, and they're being very, very good about this whole thing. We want to get them the issue, and it's not feasible to really mail it out to a lot of people right now, because it goes to folks who work in offices, and those offices haven't been open in a month and a half.
Yeah.
So they're getting the issue, we're doing an issue, and you're saying, well, what's in the issue? Because there's no shows playing. But we're saying, hey, these are shows that are still on the
Put
runway.
in your baby pictures like you were talking.
What?
Weren't you gonna put in your baby pictures?
I was not going to put in my baby. Nobody wants to see my baby picture. I don't even want to see my baby picture. Actually, I kind of do. But there's the deal. There's still, Broadway will reopen. Broadway always rebounds. It may not be June. May not even be Labor Day or July 4th or September. It might be 2021, but it will, in a slow way, come back. And within 3 to 5 years, we won't even remember this shit. Honestly, we won't. There'll be another, there's another pandemic out there. You know, we'll worry about that then. By then, Broadway, as it were, from World War II, right? From 9/11, from other, there was polio epidemics, dozens, hundreds of years ago, not 100, decades ago. Broadway stayed Broadway. People went eventually, and they just said, okay, it's all right, let's go back, and I need entertainment, I need wit, I need insight, I need tears, I need laughter. People went back to Broadway. Well, there's all these Broadway shows that were playing. Some of them will come back. There were Broadway shows that were planned, and they were even coming back in the fall. They just haven't picked a date yet because they're afraid to, but they will. And off-Broadway and off-Broadway shows too. What are they? Who's involved? You'll find that all in the pages of Performing Arts Insider. Find out more by going to performingartsinsider.com. Yes, you can subscribe. We would love to have many more subscriptions. It's expensive, but it's worth every penny because we put the work into making a very, very valuable publication about the Broadway and New York theater scene. Performing Arts Insider since 1944 and onward, the Bible of Broadway. Okay, more unfortunate. So yeah, we don't have any COVID-related deaths to report on Inside Broadway today. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. Except we do have a theater that is COVID, let's say, is the last nail in the coffin for the Upright Citizens Brigade theater houses in New York. Now, Upright Citizens Brigade has been losing money, apparently, for a while now. I thought they were doing great. This is this place that does improv and sketch comedy, and it birthed this whole array of people who are making the TV comedy that we're watching now. The Amy Poehlers of this world, the Tina Feys, the Aziz Ansaris. These folks were cutting their teeth at UCB 15, 20 years ago. So you figure, everybody wants to attend them. Everyone want to take classes there. Everybody want to see their shows. They're still hip, even though they're 2 decades old. And yet, New York, man, New York rent, they couldn't cut it. So they had closed an East Village venue that they had, as Rabbi Sol was talking with Jeffrey Lewis about things changing. UCB closed its East Village Theater a year or two ago. Now they're going to be closing their home in Hell's Kitchen and its training center on 8th Avenue. They're not disbanding. UCB will still, stay alive, but they'll rent places when it's time to do something. Corona essentially killed it. They were already losing money and having terrible troubles, but with no one going to see anything for weeks at a time, they just thought this is the time to give it up. So far, the Upright Citizens Brigade venues in Los Angeles are safe, although the organization still has money troubles. UCB was founded in the 1990s. Amy Poehler was one of the founders of it, and it became a springboard for people like Ellie Kemper and Kate McKinnon of Saturday Night Live. You'd figure these people make so many millions of dollars. I'm sure they've donated. I'm sure they've given a lot of money, but it just, when you've got a storefront in New York and it's whatever, $40,000 a month to just keep the lights on, what the hell can you do? Anyway, farewell to Upright Citizens Brigade as a venue. We'll see what happens with the actual organization over the next year or 2 or 3. Anything? What's happening?
Your dad's prescription's ready, but your mom's too busy watching the fake news of Cuomo.
Cuomo. Oh, wait, doesn't he go on at noon?
Oh, it's on early.
Oh my goodness. Andrew.
They're saying swab testing. It doesn't. Why are politicians such idiots?
Because they are. That it goes with the territory. You have to be appealing to the masses, and when you appeal to the masses, you got to go from here to here in your intellect.
I think they're starting here.
Well, anyway, happy news to announce in terms of Broadway. And off-Broadway too. I know there's no happy news right now, really, but this is kind of cool. They could have canceled the Drama Desk Awards, right? They've postponed the Tonys. We don't know what's going to happen with the Tonys now. But the Drama Desk Awards are happening. They're going to be virtual, duh. But they announced the nominations this past Tuesday, and the ceremony will be online at the end of May, on May 31st. So, who are the nominees of the Drama Desk for 2019-2020 season? And of course, they ended the season technically March 11th, rather than mid or late April, as is usual. So, 11 Tony nominations going to the David Henry Hwang musical Soft Power, which I liked very much, by the way.
What's
a very smart piece of work, huh?
What is it about?
It's about really this intricate and fun musical about Hwang, who was, and it's semi-autobiographical, he was attacked on the street a couple of years ago, almost killed, he almost bled out. And they saved him. And then he goes through this big fever dream of China wanting him to write an old-fashioned Rodgers and Hammerstein type musical and bring it to China, but from a Chinese sensibility, using American storytelling musical theater techniques. It got mixed reviews, audiences, but I'm so glad that it got 11 nominations. It's a really good piece of work. The Wrong Man, that got 9 nominations. That's another musical. 8 nominations to the Stephen Adly Girgis play Halfway Bitches Go to Heaven.
There you
I
go.
didn't see that one.
That was my title.
It
That was my dissertation title.
was called Halfway Bitches Go to Heaven. Well, that was before the colon. What came after the colon?
Social class and then depression and mediating factors.
There you go. Yeah, that somehow that didn't fit on the marquee. Just to note, I mentioned the play Slave Play by Jeremy O. Harris and Girl from the North Country. They did not get a bunch of nominations that they may have because they were off Broadway a year ago. So they were considered for Drama Desk nominations and awards then and couldn't be reconsidered. That's their policy. But anyway, special awards.
David, I think what's going to happen is post-COVID, every Broadway show will be a monologue with somebody like way back on the stage, talking.
Well, you know what? They just turn all the monologues would be directed that way,
Yes.
and it was
and
upstage.
have a video camera,
Yeah. And then the video would show and then everybody in the audience would be sitting 6 seats apart.
I know.
That could happen. That could work. But we are going to see a shitload of monologues, only because nobody can afford, all the producers have lost so much money. All they can afford is one person on stage, one director, brick set, one lighting designer with a spotlight. And that's, and maybe then you can afford to have only 500 people in a 1,400 seat house. But some special awards that are already given for this year's Drama Desk Awards. So, which means that these are not competitive. There are all these different categories of nominations for the Drama Desk. These are just special awards that people will be honored with on May 31st. For example, the ensemble of a play called Octet, actress Mary Bacon, the Actors Fund, our friend of the neighborhood, Seth Rudetsky, and his husband, James Wesley, for getting us through the whole Corona thing and doing fun stuff online.
Like what?
The Public Theater's mobile unit, the WP Theater and their founder or the person who was running it, Julia Miles, who passed away a couple of weeks ago, and intimacy coordinator Claire Warden for figuring out in the Me Too era how to put actors on stage in sexy, sexual scenes and physical stuff that isn't fighting, but it's the other F word. How do you do that and keep each other physically safe and also emotionally safe when you might be taking your clothes off and doing this stuff with another person? So she's getting a special award too. In terms of category stuff, got to do some congratulations in terms of the nominations. For musical revival, you've got Little Shop of Horrors, which was co-written by Alan Menken. Yay. So that's nominated alongside the revival of West Side Story on Broadway and The Unsinkable Molly Brown off Broadway with our friend Beth Malone nominated for Outstanding Actress. Yeah. Also a shout out to David Cale, whose solo show We're Only Alive for a Short Amount of Time was nominated. And LaChanze has a nomination for Featured Actress in a Musical for her work in The Secret Life of Bees. Well, we do have some more sad news again. Another death, but of natural causes. Farewell to actress Shirley Knight, who passed away at the age of 83 this past Wednesday. She started out in California, then came to New York to study at all the New York studios like Strasberg and Berghoff and places like that. One of her early roles was theater-related because she played the provocative white woman who tempts a black man on the subway in Dutchman by Amiri Baraka when they made the movie of it. She also starred in Francis Ford Coppola's early film, The Rain People, and Tennessee Williams loved her. He would use her or have her used a lot in his movies. She was in Sweet Bird of Youth at the movie version. Shirley Knight was a 2-time Drama Desk nominee, including appearing in The Young Man from Atlanta, and she was Tony nominated for that in her last Broadway role. It was the original, not the revival that they did last year, but the original Young Man from Atlanta in 1997. She got her first Tony nomination in the Actors Studio's production of Three Sisters, directed by Lee Strasberg, and check out the other cast members here, Geraldine Page and Kim Stanley. Not too shabby. Shirley Knight was a Tony winner for the play Kennedy's Children in 1975. Her last New York role was just 2 years ago. She co-starred with Idina Menzel in a play called Skin Tight, and her death was announced by her daughter, also an actress, Caitlin Hopkins. So a big farewell from the neighborhood to the theatrical Shirley Knight. But are we going to go out on a downer? Are we going to end our Inside Broadway segment with bad news? No, ladies and gentlemen. The good news is that Stephen Sondheim is alive and well and 90 years old. Now you know this. He turned 90 a couple of weeks ago. And they're going to have this big celebration plan for him on stage with people singing and doing cabaret. No, couldn't do it. But they're going to do a virtual Stephen Sondheim celebration tomorrow, April 26th. I think it's at 8 o'clock in the evening. It's going to be free. It'll be on YouTube and also broadcast on Broadway.com. And there's going to be people doing his songs and giving tributes. Among the folks who have already signed on, Meryl Streep, Bernadette Peters, Patti LuPone, Audra McDonald, Linda Lavin, our friend of the neighborhood, and I'm sure as we speak, they're signing more and more and more and more names like you can't believe, like, oh, a gaggle of folks just to pay tribute to our greatest living theatrical songwriter, Stephen Sondheim, who, thank God, you know, he's been in not fantastic health for a couple of years, but he's okay. He's all right. You know, he doesn't have COVID or anything else. And proceeds, if people want to donate to this, proceeds will go to artists striving to end poverty. So you're going to want to check that out. And happy birthday to Stephen Sondheim. Again, even though it's like a month later, let's go out of our Inside Broadway segment to hear a little of Bernadette doing Not a Day Goes By, which I believe comes from Follies, a Sondheim song. And we'll be back with more Dave's Gone By after this.
Not a day goes by, not a single day, but you're somewhere a part of my life, and it looks like you'll stay as the days go by. I keep thinking, when does it end? Where's the day I'll have started forgetting? But I just go on thinking and sweating and cursing and crying.
Bernadette Peters live, I mean, she's not live right now, but a live recording that we found on YouTube of her doing Not a Day Goes By, one of the classics, one of, oh my God, probably about 4 dozen classic songs written or co-written by Stephen Sondheim. That takes us out of our Inside Broadway segment on Dave's Gone By. It's not quite noon yet, and we do have a couple more things to do on Dave's Gone By, including our wretched pun of destiny. Oh, I know you're looking forward to that. And let's get poetical, since there's hardly a greater musical writer in the English language than Stephen Sondheim. Let's get a lower level, perhaps the lowest level of poetry, the limerick, the 5-line verse or stanza, if you will, where you're intentionally being rude and silly and sometimes sick and comedic and vulgar, which I do so well. We do our Colorado limericks of the damned because Joyce and I were living in Colorado for a bunch of years, and it got into my head that, hey, it might be fun to write a disgusting limerick for every town and place in Colorado that I can think of. Well, I got more than 100 of them done, and still doing new ones occasionally. We have a new one today. And so every week on Dave's Gone By, I bring you another one. I apologize in advance and get the kids out of the room. It's time for our Colorado Limerick of the Damned for Cotopaxi, Colorado.
You're the poetry man.
A limerick is a comic verse of 5 lines, in which lines 1, 2, and 5 would end with words that rhyme. And likewise, verses 3 and 4 also end with words that rhyme. So this is a limerick.
Rocky Mountain, Colorado.
Yes, our Colorado Limerick of the Damned. And believe me, I had no idea that this place existed at all. Cotopaxi, Colorado. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a tiny little town, as you might imagine, in central Colorado with a population of about 50 people. It was founded by a settler who named the town after an Ecuadorian volcano, because Cotopaxi is apparently a very well-known volcano and even sort of a tourist spot in Ecuador. And some settler thought it would be cool to name a place in Colorado after it. Check this out. This is, Rabbi Sol would love this. In 1882, a group of 60 Russian Jewish immigrants came to Cotopaxi and tried to settle there. Okay, if you can wrap your mind around the idea of Jewish pioneers, yeah. So this is what happened. They were promised housing. Most of that did not materialize. The crops, they thought they were coming into some nice place. Well, Colorado there is nice about 4 or 5 months a year. The rest, it's horrible winter and nothing grows. So they had a very, very bad harvest. Then they had blizzards wiping out the rest of their harvests. You know, there's a reason Jewish people shouldn't farm. And eventually they just had to disband the whole thing after 2 or 3 years. It just did not work out and they dispersed. Well, anyway, Cotopaxi still sort of exists. It's got one post office, a couple of small businesses, and one big business, a white water rafting company that serves thousands of tourists every year, because like so much of Colorado, it's beautiful and it's near water and it's near hiking and camping and trees, so and the Rockies. So yeah, Cotopaxi, Colorado. And that is why I'm going to be doing a Colorado Limerick of the Damned, all about it. Are you ready? I think you are. A lady in East Cotopaxi was raped in the back of a taxi. They tracked down the demon by finding his semen dried up on her pad that was maxi. Yes, that's our Colorado Limerick of the Damned, ladies and gentlemen. Send your comments and complaints to davesgoneby@aol.com. Dave's Gone. My wife is giving me a look like, oh, how could you? davesgoneby@aol.com. Yes, I still have an AOL account. Yes, I still read email there. And you can also contact me just by leaving me messages on my Facebook page. Now, I really haven't been able to, maybe I can't, I don't really want to mess with it, but I want to see. Maybe I can check if people have been sending me messages here. Maybe not.
I think that B brought a little note from somebody.
Oh, it's kind of. We were looking at bees. One big bee outside our window, and he was joined by another bee. Like moments ago, there were like 2 of them bumbling around and trying to make little bee babies, I think. Well, and it's appropriate because Rabbi Sol did that Shakespearean sonnet earlier in the week, right? So it was 2 bees or not 2 bees? Yeah, that's a question. Anyway, reminding you that you can message me here.
Your meds again?
I really should be. Message me on my Dave's Gone By page, of course. And whether I can see them right now, which I don't know if I can, but I can certainly see them during the week. And I do read all the messages that I get and all the emails and stuff like that. So whether you email me at davesgoneby@aol.com or post direct messages to me on my Facebook page, either private ones or for everyone to see, please do. I love hearing from you guys. I love, like we've got 100 or something people watching the show. I can see that now, which is great. And people engaging with the show. Oh, like Cynthia wrote in to say they woke up too late to see the show, Cynthia, or they woke up too late to catch the Today Yesterday quiz. Robert from my high school says hi. This is kind of neat. So yeah, we are streaming. We are doing our show. It is noon. You're watching Dave's Gone By with me, Dave Lefkowitz. We do it every Saturday from 9 until noon or thereabouts. It's time for our dog Cameo. Our dog's name is not Cameo. It's our dog who will be making a cameo appearance because we want to get even more viewers. Tell everybody, you made it through our horrible, wretched pun of destiny, right? And you got through the Inside Broadway segment. Your reward is looking at a really cute dog, because this is what people look at on the internet when they're not surfing porn. Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon to this screen right now, in our 743rd episode of the program on this April 25th, 2020, we've been calling the show what was our show? Well, it was Lewny Tunes in honor of our guest, Jeffrey Lewis. I think, is my wife going to bring him in? Maybe she's changing his diaper. But we should have a cameo. Here he is. Here he comes.
I gotta put his sunglasses because it's bright sun here.
And here's our dog. His name is Ufti. The great Uftini, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, hold on.
I'll put it on right. Here he is. He's 18 years old. Oh, I know I'm not holding him the best, but here he goes. Yeah, this is entertainment. Nobody tunes in for my actual show. They want to see this. A dog in doggles, ladies and gentlemen.
Because of the sun, he's blind.
Our dog. Well, if he's blind, the sun shouldn't bother him.
No, because his eyes are open. See?
Yeah, he's got cataract. Every single possible lens of his eye is occluded. You probably see that here. I'm going to hold him up real close.
Hold him this way.
This is our beautiful, wonderful dog, Ufti. Hey, boy. Do you enjoy the show so far?
You can hold him while I work now.
Oh, wait, no. Ufti says we want to do a little bit of Gritty Crimes at All Times.
Oh, Jesus
since we haven't done it in a while. No. I know it's noon already. We should end the show, but we've got...
I want to do here. I'll put him back. He's going to bark. I'll shut the door.
Just like 5-10 minutes of Gritty Crimes at All Times. As a special, since we also lost time earlier in the show, let's do that. And then we've also got our Wretched Pun of Destiny. While Joyce is taking care of that, let me talk about the Friends of the Neighborhood just a little bit. Now, Friends of the Neighborhood are people like Jeffrey Lewis, great folks who have appeared on this program in months and years past. We like to honor them by finding out what they're doing now. So, for example, at some point, Jeffrey Lewis will be on tour again. We'll let you know when he's coming back and playing locally, and you can go see him. So we do that with folks who are actors and writers and directors and designers. It is called our Friends of the Neighborhood. So yeah, obviously our Friends of the Neighborhood are not appearing on stage at the moment, or not in the middle of making Hollywood movies and such, but we do have we do want to give shout outs. And first of all, perhaps most importantly this week, we want to wish, as Rabbi Sol would say, a refuah shlema, a full and healthy recovery to our friend Tony Sport Yellow. He was our guest a few months ago. And he tunes in pretty much every week, and it's always great to see him. Well, Tony, this is the kind of week he had. He wrote on his Facebook page, his symptoms started on Monday with an on-again, off-again tightening of his chest and severe stomach pain. Tuesday...
That happens to me every day when I listen to you.
Thank you, my darling wife Joyce there. So I said on Tuesday... He knew he was going through something. He let it be. The next day, he was much worse. So bad, like he hobbled over to City MD, which he found surprisingly was not packed.
City
it was not
MD
crowded.
Is like an urgent care.
Yeah,
name.
it was just a local urgent care. The doctor there x-rayed him, looked at him, and said, "You're the sickest person I've seen today, and your x-rays are a mess. You go to a hospital now." And so Tony checked himself into Mount Sinai Hospital. And he said it was chaos there. He said it was just tons of people, tons of running around, emergencies, urgent stuff everywhere with the COVID. But the doctors and the nurses.
COVID?
Yeah. He said that the people there, despite being frazzled and underslept, and just overwhelmed were really knowledgeable, really kind, really patient, answering all the questions. He said they were great, quite honestly, at Mount Sinai. And they booked him in there. And here's the amazing part of it. He was there for about 2 or 3 days. And he did not have corona. Turned out he had just a pneumonia. He somehow had caught pneumonia. And that's what had laid him low. But he did not have the coronavirus, which meant, and this is the best part, that when they put him in a room, he had this glorious, lovely, almost rich person's room all to himself, even though they're totally overwhelmed by all these people. Why? Why do you think they gave him his own room?
Because he mentioned Dave's Gone By?
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. And he got more than 10%. No,
Why?
because he didn't have corona.
He could infect people.
Yeah, or vice versa. They didn't want corona people infecting him, which probably would have killed him if he'd gotten both.
Yeah.
So they gave him his own little separate private room, and it looked really nice. And he was like, yeah. So he kind of liked, I mean, he also suffered. He had a bad pneumonia. He stayed 2 days, found out he had plain old pneumonia. And this is the most lovely part. If you go to Tony's Facebook page, you can read his full story about this. He would hear every 15, 20 minutes, every half hour, he'd start to hear, doo-doo-doo-doo, here comes the sun, doo-doo-doo-doo, it's all right, doo-doo-doo-doo, in the George Harrison Beatles song. And he's like, am I going crazy? Am I feverish? Why does somebody keep playing this? And one of the nurses, one of the staff told him that every time someone who had come into the hospital with COVID and was a patient there went home and was released, they would play Here Comes the Sun. They would play that song, and, he found that very touching, very moving, and this really lovely thing, because there's this moment when the staff and the doctors and everyone could say, we saved another one. Someone's walking out of here. They're not coming out in a body bag. Someone's alive and going to be well. Wow. Here comes the sun. And when Tony left, they asked him, they said, you didn't have COVID, but you were here with pneumonia for 2 days. I said, okay, if you play the song. And he's like, you betcha. And he went out of there to It's All Right, Here Comes the Sun. Isn't that wonderful? That's a lovely story. And we hope Tony is getting better and is over. I know pneumonia takes some time, but is getting better and looked after, because we want Tony with us for a very long time to come.
Went to your reading. He was wonderful.
Yes, he was. Yes, he is alive, getting well.
Reading, he was wonderful.
Yeah. Okay, I want to let you know that Annie Golden, our guest from just 2 or 3 weeks ago, she was in an off-Broadway show, when there was off-Broadway, called Broadway Bounty Hunter. Well, it was written kind of specifically for her. Well, the original cast recording is now released on Ghostlight Records, and it's available wherever you can get your music. So here, Annie Golden, in Broadway Bounty Hunter, or she is taking part, as she told us, in this online digital musical podcast. It's not visual, it's just audio, called Bleeding Love. Yes, Annie Golden in Bleeding Love. And it's all about life during sort of sheltering and pandemic and post-apocalyptic kind of thing. She plays Madame Floy in this musical that you can listen to via Apple Podcast. I gave a bit of a listen early this week. I find it a little bit kind of noisy in your face, but also some pretty good music there, and she's pretty good. So you might want to check it out yourself. It's Bleeding Love, the musical, at Apple Podcasts. We want to let you know that tonight at 8 o'clock, you can see and hear Jorma Kaukonen doing a quarantine concert live on YouTube. Well, no, Jorma Kaukonen from Jefferson Airplane. Jorma Kaukonen from Acoustic Hot Tuna and regular, electric medley hot tuna. All of that, he's doing his quarantine concert from his Fur Peace Ranch. So you're going to want to check that out for free on YouTube tonight at 8 o'clock. Want to let you know that on this past Wednesday, Amy Mann took part in writing one of the 24 drugs was giving me a look. She knows that that's one of my old heartthrobs there. Amy Mann took part in writing one of the 24-hour musicals that they're doing. They moved that online as well. So they get these people together, directors, writers, songwriters, actors, And they have 24 hours to create a 5 or 10 minute musical from scratch. They've got to write it, they've got to edit it, they've got to rehearse it, and then they've got to perform it within a 24-hour span. And usually they would do this on a stage in a theater. Now, of course, they're doing it digitally, and that's what they did. You can see the results at 24hourmusicals.com. I want to let you know that on this coming Wednesday, April 29th, our friend of the neighborhood, Richard Nelson, the playwright. Now, he's been working on for like a decade now, a play series called the Rhinebeck Panorama. All these plays, these intimate chamber plays about one family, the Apple family. And it's really about real life. It's very, almost like the Frederick Wiseman version of theater. It's just a family sitting around the kitchen table, talking politics, talking family, having relationship issues, just in a normal way. It's not Sturm und Drang, there's no Deus Ex Machina. It's an American family in modern times. And he's written a few different plays about it. He's got another one. They can't put it on anywhere, so they're going to be doing it on virtually, digitally, I guess, cutting from one to the other, although we have to zoom it. It will be free on the Public Theater's YouTube channel. What's it called? It's called, oh, I don't have the name of the play. I'm very sorry. But it's
That's
by,
a horrible name.
it's by Richard Nelson and features our other friend of the neighborhood, J.O. Sanders, because he's been in all those Apple Family plays as well. Also, want to remind you that on May 1st, Steve Forbert's new album, Good Time Charlie's Got the Blues, drops on Blue Rose Music Label Records. Get it where you get your music from. Jane Siberry is still doing her nightly meditations for all of us who are cloistered, as is she. So you want to check her out on her Facebook page, Jane Siberry, Siberry. Want to remind you, even though there's nothing to read about at the moment, that Evan Seplow is a great friend of ours, and his website, stagebuddy.com, is a great place to find some stuff about New York. If you're hankering to read about New York theater and live music and other cultural activities, and you miss it and you want to read about it from the past 10 years, go to stagebuddy.com. That's his website. Dr. Demento, doing Dr. Demento shows at drdemento.com. Soundsofbroadway.com if you want to listen to Broadway show tunes 24/7. And Bob Cudmore, doing podcasts about upstate New York history at bobcudmore.com. Those, my friends, are the friends of the neighborhood. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Dave's Gone By. We're into overtime time because we still have a little more to do. I've been promising the last couple of weeks that we would do Greeley Crimes and Old Times, even though there aren't any old times being added now because they're furloughing half the staff at the Tribune. They're still doing some cop log stuff. And so that we don't get backlogged with it, and these are really, really fun. These are items that appeared in the Greeley Tribune, that is the local newspaper where Joyce and I were living for a lot of years. They have two columns in there every week, one of which is phone calls that come into the Greeley and Weld County Police Dispatch from people who either need help themselves or find that other people might need help in a rather humorous way. But this is these are taken from police dispatch transcripts, which I guess are public record. So we mix those up with items that were in the Greeley Tribune, or what was then called the Tribune Republican, back in 1920, 100 years ago. We call the segment Greeley Crimes and Old Times. Okay, so are you ready for some times, ladies and gentlemen, and my darling wife Joyce?
I can't use my phone because somebody was using my hotspot, so I have to improvise.
Well, why do you need your phone? What you may need are these sound effects machines, because it's very important now.
Give it to me. I'm
Let's do a crime, ladies and gentlemen, a recent crime coming out of Greeley, Colorado, according to police dispatch. A caller reported that a craft store in Center Place Drive, that's a a place where a lot of stores are,
Oh, Michael.
was still open when they should have been closed.
Wow.
And the caller demanded that police shut them down.
Good.
Police instead told this caller about other resources for COVID-19 concerns. At 1:15 on the same day, another caller complained that the store was
Oh,
open.
wait, we don't have the. Where's the telephone?
Oh, I know. Telephone, is this, I got lighting here? It's probably in that bin over there. Oh, that sounds familiar. Meanwhile, a caller near 22nd Street called the police and wanted to know if an ice cream truck is considered an essential business.
It is.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, heck yeah.
I think so.
I mean, my gosh, if they stop giving out ice cream. Because I was joking about this a couple of weeks ago when I was walking down not Broadway, New York City, but Broadway where we live, and the bakery was open. And I'm like, okay, are mandel breads and hamantaschen and snack loaves essential? And Joyce was like, well, yeah, it's prepared food. People need food, and people don't necessarily have ovens and can cook and stuff. They need food that they can buy that is prepared. They are essential. So yeah, and so is ice cream. I totally agree. Not want to let you know. Moving on with other aspects of grisly crimes in old times. Here's some old time stuff. There are several censuses occurring, or is it sensei? I guess I'll have to ask my sensei, but several censuses are occurring in Greeley at this time. A boy census for the Boy Scouts, a male census for the Rotary Club, which just kind of goes around and around in circles, a church census, and the police are performing a dog census.
Ooh, dog census.
It's like, excuse me, sir, how many dogs are currently living in your doghouse? I mean, like,
7.
okay, yeah, well, that could be. Now, also from the newspapers 100 years ago, the son of a jail prisoner brought him a new pair of boots. What do you think was nailed to the soles of those boots?
Baby Jesus?
No.
What?
Well, think. We've seen this in so many episodes of shows. And
money.
No, but you're in sort of the right area. You're going to bring a prisoner something that is attached to his boots.
Oh, what do you call that thing? A razor.
A hacksaw blade. Very good. Yes, a couple of hacksaw blades. The father used them to cut through his cell bars, but he was caught before he could completely escape. The father is now on bread and water in jail, and the son is in another cell. Oh well.
I love when families participate. They say the family that roots and steals together stays together. So.
Well, wait. If you were the son and you thought you could get your dad out of jail, would you do anything to do it?
Maybe.
I like to think that I would try it. I'd probably get caught. I get caught with something in the boot.
You mean your butt?
My luck, I won't even be able to find a hacksaw. Look, I found a spoon. I mean, just keep digging for a while. Go slow. Anywho, more grisly crimes in old times. A caller on 6th Street reported that he was being followed. And the caller asked for police contact only by phone, saying he doesn't trust cops. Wondering if he owns a craft store.
I think he's got a problem.
Yeah. A caller at a supermarket at 69th and 10th, we know that big one there,
yes,
reported an extremely drunk man with a cane and a Miller Lite who was causing issues with customers. I have nothing, I don't know, I've got nothing funny to say about that. Do you think that Miller Lite was made with corn syrup? No, just cane. That's terrible. That's not even, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. Do I have to apologize for this next one? Police responded to 12th Street for a woman peeing on the wall and trying to steal a bicycle tire.
How can you do? I multitask a lot.
Yeah.
But even I could not pee on a wall and get a tire going.
And honestly, can a woman pee on a wall?
I guess you can.
I mean, if she has I don't know. I mean, I've seen you pee, it just goes straight down if you're a girl. This like a little baby water fountain, and like how do you pee up against a wall if you're a girl?
It's hard, but you know.
That takes practice. As does stealing a bicycle.
While peeing, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Moving on, let's see. Oh, and by the way, that was from recent times, just so you know.
Yeah,
The Women's Christian Temperance Union, which is very opposed to alcohol, has made comment that they don't oppose tobacco. And they said they will not fight the use of weed by adults. That's kind of cute. But they were calling tobacco weed back then because it was, yeah.
I don't think so. I think they were talking about guns.
I don't think so. Not then. Let's do a couple more of really current times from Coplog in our Really Crimes of Old Times segment. For example, police responded to E Street potato. Duck. Here's the deal. This was an animal-related call. The caller said her neighbor had, quote, too many ducks, and she was concerned for the ducks' welfare. Yeah, because if I'm a cop, I want to be, well, you know, cops are probably not getting nearly as many calls as they normally would. Well, domestic. They'd be called for a lot of domestic stuff because people are cooped up together and want to kill each other. But they're not going to get as many, probably, thefts and pickpockets and what have you. But there's probably an 800% increase in too many ducks calls, if you ask me. I
believe so, yes.
Yeah. And phew, that's going to lead to a big bill. I read about that on the web. Yes, indeed. I quack myself up. I do, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I know. Do I make you quail with my jokes? I'm a silly goose. I'm sorry. This show's taking a swan dive as we speak. Ladies and gentlemen, a little bit more. One more of Really Crimes of Old Times. I won't make you suffer this anymore. Wow. This is one of my favorites of all recent times of Really Crimes of Old Times. And this happened at 4:20 in the morning. 4:20. I wonder if it happened on April 20th, too. A caller on 2nd Avenue Court reported that a neighbor started a fire and loudly yelled, "Morning, morning, morning!" Like before 4:30 in the a.m., starts a fire and is starting, "Morning, morning, morning!"
If you start a fire in your yard, you should yell that, right?
The caller also said the neighbor was yelling about killing all the other neighbors with rocket launchers and grenades.
I like him.
Oh, man.
I know, maybe our university has to do something.
I don't know what co-op board let that guy on.
I know.
Oh, man. Well, we're past the morning here on Dave's Gone By. It's well into the afternoon. And that, my friends, was Really Crimes and Old Times.
Mr. Horace Greeley was no fool. I'm sure that you'll agree with me that Greeley was no fool.
What he is getting at is that Mr. Greeley was no fool.
Yippee-yi, yippee-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi, yippee-yi,
So it is about 25 after 12 Eastern time here in the neighborhood. You're watching the Dave's Gone By Facebookio, Podcastio, Programmio of the stream. Reminding you, of course, that we have our website, davesgoneby.com, where all our archives reside. They are free, going all the way back to our first episode from October of 2002, all the way to the episode that we did last week. And if you give us a few hours, or maybe a day, we'll have today's episode loaded up there as well. You can also scroll down on our Facebook page and watch the past 2 years, really, 2.5 years of our Facebook shows. And then before that, you can either go to davesgoneby.com or archive.org to watch and or hear all our episodes going back 17 and a half years. If you want to contact me, it's davesgoneby@aol.com or just message me right here on Facebook. If you want to find out more about Rabbi Sol, shalomdammit.com is the place to do that. Shalom, D-A-M-M-I-T, shalomdammit.com. That is the place to read and hear his mini sermons, his rabbinical reflections. It's also the place where you can watch his solo show, Shalom Dammit, an evening with Rabbi Sol Solomon, that he did back in off Broadway many years ago now. And it's also the place where you can see his TV show, Shalom Dammit, Rabbi Sol Solomon's Peace, Love, and Acid Reflux Hour, the 10 episodes that he did for Long Island Cable Television about a decade ago. It's all there at shalomdammit.com. The rabbi also has a Twitter feed at Rabbi Sol Solomon. I've got a Twitter feed, which you should follow. It's Radio Dave 2, Radio Dave, the number 2. What else can I tell you? No, I guess we're about to, oh no, we're not. Oh, you thought I'd forget. You thought I'd spare you. But we haven't done the Wretched Pun of Destiny yet. This is where we tell a story that is capped by a play on words that is just egregious, that is just stomach-turning and nauseating, because puns are indeed the lowest form of wit, if they are wit at all, and that's why I love them. So yes, we're going to have a Wretched Pun of Destiny all about eggs right now. Oh, as soon as I play this. The days gone by, wretched pun of destiny. Ahem. Hiram was having much success with his egg farm, raising extra large and jumbo eggs right from the ground. But one morning, he woke to find his crop all cracked, with half-cooked egg white and runny yolks all over the soil. So he replanted the field. The eggs started growing, and all was fine until again, one morning, all was cooked and cracked. So he replanted a third time, and he told his oldest son, "I think I know what's going on. Tonight we'll hide in the fields and see for ourselves." Hiram and Hiram Jr. did just that. Hidden behind some bushes, they camped out overnight and watched the egg field. Just after midnight, 3 men stole into the field and, with giant canisters, began pouring boiling water all over the eggs. "Just as I suspected," Hiram whispered to his son. "Poachers!"
That's just awful.
We here at Dave's Gone By apologize for bringing you the Wretched Pun of Destiny. Yeah, we're not proud, ladies and gentlemen. We'll do whatever and whoever here on Dave's Gone By every Saturday from 9 until noon or thereabouts. And our thereabouts currently are just before 12:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, especially those of you who were tuned in and then got tuned out because we had to stop tape for about 5 minutes or so. And then we came back and we've got even more people writing and tuning in. Remember, if I couldn't acknowledge your little messages, because I'm looking at a Zoom window more than a Facebook window through this whole show. So I can't just suddenly see all your messages. But I'm thrilled that you've been there, all the folks who tuned in, all the folks who will watch this program, or maybe you're watching it not when we're live, but a week or a month or a year later. Welcome to you too. Tell everyone you know about this show. We've had this jump in viewership over the last few weeks, which is wonderful. And so many people talking more about the show and about me and Rabbi Sol Solomon and the potatoes. It's really, as we grow our community, we can grow the show. And I'm really hoping for that. And you all are part and parcel of that. Please drop me an email, davesgoneby@aol.com. Drop me a message on our Facebook page and tell folks to like and follow this show. I know we're a Facebook Live broadcast, a podcast. You don't have to be a friend. I don't have to invite you or have you like the page or follow the page to watch the program live on Saturday mornings. So if there's people you know who have Facebook, but they don't want to join anything, or they're worried about their information or something like that, or they don't necessarily want to be friends with me, they don't have to. All they have to do is go to my Dave's Gone By page on Facebook to watch the show live, or check out the show in repeats at davesgoneby.com. Well, that is the end of our 743rd episode of the program that we have been calling Lewny Tunes in honor of our guest, Jeffrey Lewis in the neighborhood. Please, please, please go to thejeffreylewisSite.com to get his music, to get his comic book work, and to just check out what he's been doing with himself both pre and during COVID. thejeffreylewisSite.com. We thank him very, very much for being such a natural and fun guest with us in the neighborhood. Thank you to Rabbi Sol Solomon. Check out shalomdammit.com. Thank you to my wonderful, adorable, and supportive wife, Joyce, for all her help with the show. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Remember, we should be back, good Lord willing, and the COVID don't rise next Saturday, first Saturday in May, for the 744th episode of Dave's Gone By. Until then, stay healthy, of course, and stay COVID-free. Wear your masks, and if you're interested in that oil deal I was talking about, I don't think it's still $36 minus per barrel. It may be down to like minus 10. Still a bargain. If you've got the space, I've got the wallet to take the cash they'll give me. Let's buy some oil drums together. And gone by.
Days gone by, days gone by, days gone by, days gone by, days gone by.
See, you all thought that I ended the show late, but in fact I ended oily. Gone by.